evening, everyone, and
evening.
Welcome to the home of Loaded HQ, the home of the fully loaded transfer show. We're back, round 3. Ding, 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 ding. We are ready to get into it. But boys, we're here. How are you guys? Daz?
All good, Pete. Bit of a rush to make this one. As you know, I didn't think I was going to make this one tonight, or I was going to join late, but made it on time, miraculously. But the little lad's in bed, so hopefully he stays in bed, and I can talk about transfers for a while.
No better place to be right now. Marty, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, pal. All good. Rugby season is back on, so the eldest is out in a very soggy field, throwing an egg around. So... all good, mate. All good. Looking forward to this again. Looking forward to it.
Can't wait, mate. Can't wait to get into it. Richie Rich, how are you?
I'm good, mate. You?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Plenty to get into. All the rumours, all the key links, all the bids. And we are still waiting on one particular player to make his entrance into St. James's Park. But
Wiltshire! Sorry, Jack.
We have to get him on. We have to get him on, Mark.
We'll get into that for sure. But look, if we're going to get into this, if we're going to get into NUFC transfers, we need the main man to join us. So, Jordan, where are you at, my man?
There he is.
Right, lads.
Right, Jordan. Welcome back,
Jordan.
Yeah, good. I'm quite happy you just called us the main man, mate.
Not the same with that, you mate. Not the same with that. I have to say, best wishes to Mr. Avon. I know he's in the chat somewhere. Not feeling 100% tonight, but yeah, hope you feel better soon, mate. And back on the shows ASAP. But look, we need to get down to this because look, I don't think we've got enough time in the day to cover all the transfer links. This has been a mad 6 days. We are in the transfer window, but it's just been non-stop. And there's only one place to start, and that's it's ticking along. We're all waiting. We're all waiting for Mr. Trippier. Where are you? Where you at? We got it. We got the here we go. We got that famous here we go from Fabrizio Romano, but he's not here yet. But guys, do not worry. He will be here soon. We got some confirmation from Sky, from Keith Downey this evening, saying that everything's okay with Kieran Trippier deal. It's taking it a bit longer. We understand final paperwork and formalities should be completed tomorrow morning with the unveil of the player. But it seems like it's on the other side of the pond that's the issue. Is that correct, Rich? I know you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, it's what Pete Graves has mentioned on Sky before. He reckons it's Atletico holding it up. They've got not signed the final bit of paperwork or something. Apparently, they were still trying to have a go this morning at persuading them to stay, but Trippier is set on coming to Newcastle. He's heard a few of the possible incomings and apparently is very excited by what's on the horizon.
Well, if Kieran Trippier is excited, then we will definitely be excited. But look, let's get down to it. First and foremost, Jordan, what are your thoughts on Kieran Trippier being our first signing of the brand new era?
Yeah, absolutely delighted. We obviously heard whispers about it back end of last year, and particularly at the start of the transfer window, but you never know until it actually happens, and I suppose it hasn't actually happened yet, but it is going to happen. Definitely is going to happen. Definitely not tempting fate there. He will be unveiled at some point. Shame it wasn't tonight, but we've had 14 years of Mike Ashley, so I'm sure we can wait a little bit longer for a statement signing, because that's what it is. It is a statement signing. He arrives with a lot of experience, both at club level and international level. Played in big competitions, played in the Champions League final, World Cup semi-final, European Championship final, and he's just one of them players that if I'm a player outside of or in Europe and I'm a Newcastle interested in me, and I say Kieran Trippier have signed, that might tempt me to potentially sign for Newcastle. It's one of them players that could almost have his arrival could almost have domino effect. We could see a few more arrivals over the next few weeks, which I'm sure we will. The Newcastle are hard at work. The new owners behind the scenes are hard at work, working on targets behind the scenes, which I'm sure we'll touch upon a few names tonight. It's hard to keep track of names at the minute, given there's about 100 different names per day, but we'll see how it develops anyway. It's an exciting time, isn't it? So Trippier, I'm sure I'll feel quite a lot of excitement among fans, and then the most exciting part as well is that Newcastle aren't finished there, and there will be a few more big signings, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I have to agree, and it kind of feels a little bit like, it's 14 years worth of transfers just kind of rolled into these last 6 days with all the players linked. There was one reporter earlier on today that had said Newcastle are currently working on as many as 10 different deals all at once, and it's just like this is just unheard of for our club. We're lucky to get one, and now we're working on 10 at the same time. I don't know how Lee Charney will be able to with more than one. He struggled to even do that. But Mark, how have we managed to get hold of a current England international, the starting right back? For me, the best right back, in my opinion, I would put Trent Alexander-Arnold more of an attacking winger in that category, but the best starting right back for our country. How have we managed to do this?
I think first and foremost, two major things. He's obviously watched Loaded Mag and he's read Newcastle World. So that's the first two, right? Outside of that, which are probably highly unlikely, but anyway, I did send him a link. But listen, we're 19th in the league, and we've taken Atletico Madrid's starting right back out of their La Liga winning team from last season, and he was in the La Liga team of the world. So I think he knows that the club are ambitious. He knows the owners are ambitious. I would like to think that I don't think it would be a massively hard sell from the likes of Mehrdad and Amanda and others within the club. But I think he's obviously been sold a really, really good project. And I think that's what the owners are pushing with people. So listen, I think as Jordan said, I think he could be a catalyst, kind of like we had, when in the Keegan era where we started signing players and the floodgates opened. So I think he'll be one of many, but I think it's a coup. And, I think we've seen the reaction to that from other clubs and other fans in the fume that's going on. We've seen people from all over the world going, sure, why would you want to live in Newcastle? Why would you want to go there? Why would you want to go to London? Well, look, lads, he's here, and here he is with the team sitting in 19th. So long may it last. I hope he's the first of many, which I'm sure he will be. But yeah, look, it's a massive, massive coup. Massive.
Definitely. And Rich, maybe could have possibly asked Martin this question, but there's a lot of talk that he could come in and with his influence and with the stature of the player that he is, could even be given the armband. Do you think that's viable, or do you think he's just going to be someone that leads by example on the pitch? I know Martin's already nodding his head to be given the armband, but is he just someone that's going to just set the example by his quality of performances on the pitch?
Well, he'll definitely do that, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm the same England as what Martin is. I'd happily make him captain tomorrow, because he's got the leadership, tenfold probably to anybody else on the pitch as soon as he walks on the pitch. Would it be a kick in the teeth for Lascelles? Yes, it would. But with all these potential incomings, we don't even know whether he's going to be starting centre-back going forward. So if that's the case, just give Trippier the armband now, in my opinion.
No, it's an interesting point. For me, I wouldn't necessarily want to rock the boat. But yeah, we all know Lascelles is not going to. I know you would, Mark.
No, do you know what it is, Pete? I think the thing is, mate, and I think you made the comment the other night on the other show, which was it's probably highly unlikely, unless we get 3 or 4 centre backs in or whatever, that Lascelles probably, is not going to be dropped or benched or whatever. So that it's highly unlikely, I would imagine, and maybe Jordan might know a bit more, but I doubt that they're going to strip the captaincy from Lascelles. I think it would be a bad move as much as I want to see it. I don't think it would look good publicly for the club or for Eddie Howe or anybody else. So I can't see that happening. But I think one of the things that I had said about that defence was there's nobody in that back line that is pulling that defence into shape, is shouting and bawling, is organising, is screaming and pulling them up by the scruff of the neck and going, lads, what are you doing here? So I think even without that captaincy, you know, the armband around him, I think he's gonna run into that leadership role by default anyway. So I think he'll effectively captain without being captain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Daz, do you think there's a chance that he can play against Cambridge on Saturday?
No, I don't. I wouldn't.
Don't risk him.
I know he played the other day, didn't he, for Atletico? So he's not lacking match fitness. No, I'd say let him settle, get him a bit of training under his belt, and no, wouldn't risk it. I know it's nice. The cup is a nice distraction and everything like that, but we've got one aim, and that's to stay in this league. I don't really care about anything else this season. Like, just get him ready for Watford. That is a massive game. So
roll him out and let him say hello. But
yeah,
you don't play him. You don't play him, do you? You don't risk him. We just now look to he get injured.
Could well be. I think you've got a good point, Mark. I think it could well be rolled out for the crowd. It is a sold out crowd.
Yeah, it's a sellout. Yeah.
Away days yesterday with Jordan, the Cambridge fan. I think it'll be rolled out with the shirt. You know, get the fans buzzing before the game. I think it's a perfect opportunity to do that for our first signing of the new era. So look, we're going to wait and see. He'll likely be announced tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll all be absolutely buzzing when that happens. But we have got so many to talk about, so many to talk about, and I'm going to start with what was a little bit of a whirlwind last night. Lots and lots of action with regards to Newcastle. And I'm going to start with Luka Dean. There was a little bit of a merry-go-round with Luka Dean. You know, have we bid? Haven't we bid? Jordan's put it there in his article today, and very well written. It was NUFC are admirers of Luka Dean. I think that's really clear. And it's also that Rafa Benitez wants Sean Longstaff. I think we've been well aware of that for quite a while. But it seems like, and Jordan, I'll let you talk about this, that we're looking at other targets at the moment and prioritising other areas. What can you tell us from your article and anything else that maybe you picked up today? Yeah,
so the Luka Diaz link, and particularly the noise last night, was a bit surprising given the information I've been told now. I mentioned, I think, on last week's show that Luka Diaz was a target for Newcastle. As I've said there, they admire him. I think he's a good player, as his record suggests in the Premier League, but wasn't necessarily a priority. And given from what I've been told that the player isn't keen at this moment in time on a move to Newcastle, wants to wait out for a little bit to see what options he has in, say, the final week of the transfer window. So if Luka Diaz is going to sign for Newcastle United, then that's going to be one that's going to happen right at the back end of the transfer window, maybe in a deadline day deal potentially. It's not one that will happen anytime soon, to be honest. But it's an intriguing link because Rafa Benitez does want Sean Longstaff. Rafa Benitez tried to sign Sean Longstaff in the summer. Newcastle didn't want to let the player go. What happens now with Sean Longstaff? I'm not too sure. The player has 6 months left on his contract. Is he in Eddie Howe's plans? He played against Manchester United, but previous to that didn't appear much. I don't think he started a game. I think Manchester United was his first start at Eddie Howe. But that said, Eddie Howe spoke last month about Sean Longstaff and said that he wanted to give the player a chance to shine, but he also put the onus on the player to prove that he wanted a long-term future at this football club. So the option is there for Sean Longstaff to get a new deal at Newcastle, but I'm just not sure if it's his boyhood club. But Sean Longstaff, for me, is his time at Newcastle coming to an end. He played his best football under Rafa Benitez. Is the best move for him reuniting with Rafa Benitez either in January or in the summer. At this present moment, I don't think Newcastle are going to sell Sean Longstaff. I see it potentially in the last week of the window if there is a deal there to be had with Luka Diaz. then they may use Sean Longstaff as a make way for that transfer. But at the moment, I don't see any of them. I don't see Luka Diaz signing for Newcastle right now, and I don't see Sean Longstaff leaving the club right now. The other target, the priority is at this moment in time a centre back and a striker. There's been reports today about Callum Wilson's injury potentially being worse than first feared. Initially, it was meant to be 6 months. Now it looks like it could be in April, late March job. So that's where the priority lies now. They've got a big game against Watford coming up a week on Saturday. Ideally, they want a central defender in before that, and they definitely want a striker. Otherwise, it's a short-term option of playing Alan St-Maximin down the middle. Now, Alan St-Maximin, for me, has been a better player playing as the number 9, or certainly in a central role than he has been on the wing. But he's not a striker. And Newcastle now have the funds to go and sign a striker. I'm not sure how it's going to be. There's a lot of names being thrown about. That's where the two priorities lie. Definitely a striker and a central defender. And yeah, that's the latest on the Diaz front and Sean Longstaff front, from what I've been told.
No, it's always good to get the sort of the lowdown of what's been happening. It's an interesting deal, and I know as the loaded lads we've been talking about Luka Diaz quite a lot. I mean, quite vocal. Look, I think it'd be a fantastic signing, but Rich, would you want Luka Diaz coming to the club knowing that he's not overly keen at the moment, or would you say that he's well in his rights to be unsure because of the position that we're in?
Yeah, he's able to think that. I think my concern would be I'd probably leave that deal till the end of the window. Now, if that's the way he's actually feeling about things, there's bound to be umpteen top class fullbacks and other players who'll be interested in coming to Newcastle and do this product. Kieran Trippier is a fantastic example of that. Players of that caliber. So if he doesn't want to come out, I'll probably leave it till the end of the window. If we can't get anybody else, which I don't think that would be an issue, just leave it till then. That's what I would do with regards Diaz. At the end of the day, he's fallen out of favour with Rafa Benitez. He's not going to get a game there. He's just going to sit on the bench. I know Chelsea's reportedly interested in him, but do you want to go there as possibly be a third choice left back behind Alonso and Chilwell when they're fit? Or do you want to come and be part of an exciting project, play every single week pretty much, and push for your place in for the World Cup squad for next year? So that's how I look at it. But if he doesn't want to come in, you can't force someone. And to be fair, I would rather have someone who wants to be here rather than pay someone hundreds of thousands of pounds to be a mercenary and sit on the bench.
No, it's a fair point. Mark, we have Jamal Lewis potentially coming back soon from his injury, and we've also got a return in Paul Dummett. Do we need Luka Diaz?
I think for me, I think we need to add to the squad because it's threadbare. So I think anything that improves on what we've currently got is a yes from me. So would I take him? Absolutely. He definitely improves the squad. But I agree with Richie, and I think the consortium and the club are in a position now where as much as I have to keep pinching myself, we're the richest club in the world. So we don't have to take a player if he doesn't want to come, and if you don't want to get on the ride, I think we've said it a few times. If you don't want to get on board now, as this project has taken off, probably won't get you a chance to jump on in 6 months or a year's time. So get the players that want to be part of it. Get the players that want to pull that black and white shirt on and go out on that pitch and probably fight tooth and nail for the next 6 months of the season to keep us up. So I think we need right attitude, right players. I think the only thing for me is obviously Longstaff obviously wants to get football, understand that. If we're not going to do something and it's a snap end of the season piece, as Jordan's saying, the only thing for me is if you got another injury or anything else and you're relying on Longstaff, he's being thrown in as a bit of bait to try and get a bit of deal. Obviously, Everton want him, but just for me, that I'm not sure how that wrecks the kid's head and stuff like that. So I'm not kind of always in favour of a player that's part of a deal being named. I think it can be a little bit detrimental myself, but that's my kind of take on it anyway.
No, I think that's a fair point. Daz, Luka Diaz, what are your thoughts at this stage? Do you agree with Rich and Mark, or have you got a different mindset?
No, I agree with the lads. like everyone is saying that he doesn't want to come to Newcastle. There's no one saying that anything different. And on Sean Longstaff, I heard talk of a 1 million being offered. I know his contract was running down, but surely he's not worth an awful lot more than 1 million. That's a bit of a joke, considering Man United were going to pay 40 at one stage. But there's plenty of left backs out there. I know we'll probably talk about a few more later. We have some loaded in the system. Just name them and we can go there.
You've segued really nicely, actually, because I think actually from those links last night with Luka Dean to finding out from Fabrizio Romano, who was adamant that he isn't going to sign for Newcastle United, the links then started that we were looking in a different direction. And there is another left back out there with equally as tremendous talent, and he currently plays for Ajax, and it's Tagliafico. So he's been heavily linked with a move away from Ajax, and actually been heavily linked with a move away in this window. There are other teams that have had approaches, but as it says from Fabrizio Romano, Newcastle will decide soon about the left back situation. Now, I think Luka Dean was kind of presented to them because they never expected him to be available. But Nicolas Tagliafico is a tremendous left-sided defender. He has all the attributes of Luka Dean. And I actually think, in my opinion, he would be someone I'd go for, because I think we could get Nico Tagliafico on a cheaper deal. And I don't think we would have to spend as much. And I think he gives you the exact same quality as what Luka Dean gives you. Jordan, do you know much about Tagliafico? Is that a name that's been sort of bandied around with interest for Newcastle United?
It's not been a name that's came to my attention, but certainly again, if that deal is to come about, then it would be a sort of an end of a transfer window deal. I think, as I say, the priority lies elsewhere at the moment with other signings. Obviously, a player with a lot of pedigree as well. Had a great run at Ajax. Got the Champions League semi-final when Spurs beat them, actually, with Kieran Trippier on the side. So it wouldn't be one I'd rule out, because if Newcastle are generally looking at a left back, which I think they are, because if you look at the options at left back, you mentioned them before, but you've got Jamal Lewis, who is currently out injured, who will be back soon, and you've got Matt Ritchie behind him. So if you have an injury at one of them two, you're then going to have either Kieran Trippier covering at left back, or even maybe a Javier Manquillo as well. So there is need for a body in there, but I think if you just look at Newcastle's squad as a whole, the priority really does lie elsewhere. They need at least two central defenders, and they need a striker. So I wouldn't rule out that transfer. I wouldn't do that at all. But as I say, it's one that you'd probably look at more towards the end of the transfer window.
Oh, no. It's an interesting one, and one to certainly keep an eye on. But for anyone that's not familiar with Nicolas Tagliafico, you're in for a treat, because we've got a little bit of a clip to run for you that shows just a little bit of this guy's quality.
And just Dienya is 28. This guy is 29. So much of a muchness for me. Here we go.
Shadows and cover the truth, don't care about what doesn't matter to you. Vindication for your regression. Perplexed as with you, tainted facts. Don't call us out, cause we've covered our tracks and it doesn't fit the manifesto. So sorry son, you're gonna have to go. Write an anthem for the doom Jews, cause you know the love and we don't love you. Don't trust the lies that have stuck like glue, no matter what you put us through. emotions. There's been rocky, shock, you know, if the lives you can't decide on time. Don't wait while the march is on. You're supposed to leave the thanks to your greed. When will it end? Will you tell me? I'll be alright. One of the law.
I tell you what, I love the clip because I love that last ball that he puts in. The whip on that ball is unbelievable. Oh, Callum Wilson would lap that up all day long.
He's no craft though, like, is he?
Definitely not. Definitely
He's a quality player. If I had the choice of two, I would take him as opposed to Digne. I think he's just much better quality all around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you guys have made a good point with the Digne situation. I think the ownership and the manager want players that want to be at the club. We've had so many players over the years that have just come to bounce to another club. We want players that actually want to play for this club. And it's so refreshing that a quality player like Trippier wants to be here. He wants to play for Newcastle United. And the fact that Digne doesn't, you know what, like you guys have said, go and play elsewhere. We want players that want to play. I have to say before we move on, there's been a couple of new members in the chat. Massive shout out. I think it's Gary D. Massive shout out for you becoming a new member. And then we've got Drew Knox as well. Drew Knox, well done, guys. Absolute quality. Welcome to the membership. If you're not a member already, hit that membership. Loads and loads of members in the channel. This is how you do it to join the channel. Get involved and join the loaded membership. There is always time. But look, we're going to move on because there's lots and lots of players we've been linked to. One of these players, I really want to get all of your opinions on this because this link came up the other day, and it's an interesting situation. And it's Christian Eriksen. He was linked in the Chronicle, saying that would us Newcastle fans take him on a free agent? Obviously, we know the situation in the summer where he had a cardiac arrest, and as he said in his interview, he was dead for 5 minutes until he was brought back to life again. He has a defibrillator. He's not allowed to play in Italy. He's been released from his contract at Inter, and he is looking to get back into football. I want to get your opinions. I'm not saying there's been loads of links. I don't believe that there has, but would you guys take Christian Eriksen at Newcastle United? Do you think it will be a risk? Jordan?
Personally, no, I wouldn't take him at Newcastle. I suppose that under the Mike Ashley era, if we were desperate for a signing, I'd say take a punt on him. But I just fear with what's happening in the summer, he might not play football again, and if he is going to play football again, it might not be at the top level. Italy have taken an issue with his current health, given what did happen in the summer. Would that be a similar scenario in the Premier League? Possibly, I'm not sure, but I think it would be very difficult to take a risk on a player. Given what happened in the summer, would come with probably decent wages as well. Too much of a risk for me. I hope he does play football again, because obviously I was watching on my TV live when the incident unfolded, and my heart completely sank. It really did. It was horrible to watch. So I'm just glad he's alive, and he's clearly got a dream to play football again. I hope he can, but I don't think the Premier League would be the right league for him at this moment in time. I think probably during his Inter days as well, even the back end of his Tottenham days, really, I think his performance levels probably dipped given the standard he'd set previously. So if he wasn't the same player then, is he going to be the same player now? I do doubt it. But as I say, best of luck to him. I do hope he gets back into the game.
No, I would agree. Martin, Christian Eriksen, would you have him at Newcastle?
Lads, you know my theory on midfield players. I'm holding out for me fangirl moment with Jack Wilshere, so I'll take Ramsey, but I'm holding out for Jack. I want to reunite the old Arsenal partnership. So, no, look, I think Jordan said pretty much everything there. You know, you wouldn't want to see any kind of repetition of what happened. You know, we all witnessed those scenes. It was absolutely horrendous, but. I think he'll struggle to come back competitively to a really big team. I think when something like that has happened, I mean, you only got to look the likes of Aguero that's had to retire and stuff like that. Like, it's just mental. Some of the stuff we're seeing with footballers and ones that have passed, you know, the likes of Czech Teoti and players like that, ridiculous. So I think if I was him, you know, he's probably not short a few bob. I know, you know, a player just wants to be out on a pitch kicking a ball, but I think sometimes you got to look at your health more than your wealth and just sit back and kick back, enjoy travel and enjoy time. Go into coaching or something, you know, work with the under 23s and stuff like that. But I can't see him playing for a big club again. No,
it's a difficult one. I just see the quality that he has and that he possesses. He wasn't necessarily a big runner, but he's got that quality and technique on the ball to really cause a problem. Baz, would you take him as a squad player?
You know what? I would, because I have this romantic notion that he's going to come back and he's going to be fine. You know, I like Jordan said, I was watching it live and everyone was just their heart melted watching it happen, and just without him. But yeah, look, it's good that he's back doing a bit of training somewhere. And I just remember him like he was unreal for Ajax, and he was always brilliant for Denmark. I remember when he played Ireland, and no one could get near him. He was playing Ireland, so it's not going to take too much. But he was very good for Spurs for a while. But then, as Jordan mentioned, he did dip in form, and it was like he wanted to get away at that time, and he ended up in Inter on big money and stuff. So, I didn't really watch him in Inter then. So, I'd like to see what he can do now before I take him back. But that's the gamble that whoever takes him on would have to take. So it'd be if we're really stuck at the end of the transfer window, then it would come into my reckoning. But not now. No, not when there's all the options that are available to us. And I don't know what age he is either. And I do agree with what Martin was saying as well. Maybe it's time for him to step back. He's made his money. Maybe this is more important things in life.
No, I think that's a fair point. But we've got plenty of other players to talk about, and we're going to go to we're going to start with one of two Brazilians, okay, that we've been linked to. So again, we're going to start with another Brazilian that was linked last night. We were one of 6 clubs linked with him, now narrowed down to 2, and we are apparently one of the 2, and maybe Jordan can confirm this, and that's Philippe.
Pete, just sorry to interrupt, mate, but it's actually was on Sky before with Carvey Solar on the transfer centre. It's actually Aston Villa and Liverpool are supposedly the 2 teams. Newcastle aren't one of the teams, but apparently Liverpool is more of an emotional interest rather than a definite interest. So basically, the only really solid one is probably Aston Villa.
Okay, interesting. Are you hearing the same, Jordan? Same situation?
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure that's a player Newcastle absolutely craved. When the takeover was first rumoured last year, I would have been the year before now, wouldn't it? Actually, given it is 2022 now, but yeah, time flies. No, but I say when the takeover, when it was first rumoured, Coutinho was one of the players on the list as sort of like a statement signing, but as time has passed, I think the interest has slowly sort of faded. It might have been there a little bit, but certainly this January, Coutinho was never a name that I'd taken seriously. And certainly given the links to Aston Villa as well. He played with Steven Gerrard at Liverpool, so as Sky have already mentioned, Liverpool or Aston Villa, I'd imagine it'll probably be Aston Villa. Yeah. Have Newcastle missed out? I'm not sure. He's a great player. He was excellent at Liverpool, ultimately faded at Barcelona, but no, it's not a name that I'd ever taken seriously. And he was just one of sort of many big names that were linked with Newcastle. He isn't the only superstar, and he won't be the only superstar. We continue to link with the club this month, but yeah, he's not coming. I don't think it was ever a real possibility. So if anyone says that Newcastle have missed out on Philippe Coutinho, it's not true, because I'm not sure that the interest was ever full on.
I think that's a great point to just put a right big line through Coutinho, and we'll
jog on, Phil.
Just before we leave him, I was watching Tim Vickery talking about him today on Sky, and he said that he's a very shy character, and that that's why he was linked to go work with Gerrard. So it's only certain managers that could get the best out of him as well. So I'm sure Howe would have been one of those, but looks like we're not going near him now, so we'll move on.
No, that's absolutely fine, and more than happy to move on. And we've got another Brazilian, and this time this Brazilian plays at centre-back, heavily linked today, rumoured to be a £25 million bid for Diego Carlos that was rejected. However, we have apparently, or we are looking to get in another bid, and from what Seville are saying, they want a bid around the 35 to 40 million pound mark. Jordan, what have you heard about the Diego Carlos links from Seville?
Again, not a lot, to be honest. It was a new link that sort of popped up last night, or certainly in the afternoon, morning time, when obviously the noise came about Botman and how that deal was, alleged bid was rejected. But I mean, taking a look at Carlos's CV, he's just on paper, I don't think it would be a bad player to have. But I think the key thing there, and this is just going off noises that I've heard, I don't think Seville are keen to sell. I think they're locked in a La Liga title bid, or certainly in with a shout of European football. So I can't comment, because I don't know a lot about the player, to be honest. You might actually know more than me on this one, if you've got a little video clip to...
Oh, what's new, Jordan?
I tell you, man, the link-up play, I tell you won't see better in the Premier League, would you?
Of course. It's like Shearer Ferdinand over here. We will let people have a good look at
me and Daz are like Billy Whitehurst and George Riley.
But actually, I'm going to segue this on to Rich, because I know Rich knows just as much about Diego Carlos as I do. I mean, he's a tremendous player. But Rich, tell everybody about Diego Carlos and what his qualities are.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a lot, right? I told my son when I picked up from school, I told Daz this before anyone joined, right? And I said, we're rumoured to put a bid in for Diego Carlos from Sevilla. He went, Diego Carlos from Sevilla? I went, yeah. He went, get in. So, he plays FIFA like constantly, and he was absolutely over the moon. He's a ball-playing centre-half as well. He's good in the air as well. The one thing, it was obviously Daz touched on it before about Tim Vickery. It also commented on this on the same show, and he said, if you could imagine as a defender, he's a bit like what Terry Butcher used to be in the old-fashioned days. However, he's the typical Brazilian, and he has got a mistake in him. So that was the only downside what he actually said in regards to Carlos. But I did actually manage to get hold of his stats from Sevilla. He started off when he moved over from Brazil. He played 3 seasons in the Liga with Nantes, and obviously he's 3 seasons at Sevilla now. Apparently, Sevilla don't really want to let him go, because obviously they're going for the Europa League again, which they've won quite a few times over the last few years, and that's why they're trying to push for the higher transfer fee towards the 35 to 40 million, which is what's been rumoured. But it's a fantastic player. We've got a short clip. I don't know whether Dad has got it there. It's only It just shows a little bit. That's only about 10 seconds long, but it just shows typical Brazilian defending at its best, is what I'll say.
Here we go, Rich.
You always have to do it the flair way, don't want the Brazilians.
Definitely, but just to add on to what Rich said, he is a right-sided centre back, and there was someone in the chat saying Mad Mark made a good point in the chat. Diego Carlos isn't as good as Sven Botman. Need to pressure Lille to sell Botman to us. We'll get onto Botman in a second, but the key to it is that Diego Carlos is a right-sided centre-back. He predominantly uses his right foot. He is lightning quick. He is very, very quick for a defender. His recovery tackles are very, very good. He's good in the air. He's good and very, very strong in the air. And I personally think he is perfect for Premier League football. For the pace of the game, the way the game is played in England, I think he's perfect. Again, Sevilla are in a situation where they don't want to lose him. There was talk today that he's keen to come to Newcastle. That's what the rumours are, that he's keen to come to Newcastle. And it's just a case of, can we get that the finance or the financial package together in order to make that deal happen? I think this should be a fantastic signing. Mark, do you know much about Diego Carlos?
No, he was kind of off the radar. There's been a little bit of chatter today with one or two that I know. I can't really say too much more, but I do think that is a player who will be chased. So I think it's one to watch. Interesting.
Daz, what are your thoughts? Now you've seen the clip.
Oh, now I've seen the clip. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know anything about him. I think all these players who were linked with, I'd have to retire to be able to comment on all of them. There's so many, and it keeps changing every hour. But the clip is brilliant. But then from Tim Vickery and that clip, I just have the thoughts of, and because I've never seen him play, of David Luiz, and I hope we don't end up with the David Luiz. That's all I'm thinking.
Without the sideshow Bob hairdo. Yeah.
You know what? He reminds me of, and I don't know whether you guys agree, but he reminds me of the guy's not. He's not a Brazilian, but he reminds me of Pepe. The way he plays. Pepe,
he loves to get sent off, Pepe.
Without the red cards, please.
If you look at the stats that Rich put up, there's a couple of red cards in there. There are a couple of red cards in there to his name. But look,
there was actually an interesting stat pick. Sorry about that. It was interrupted. There's a stat regards. That's what Tim Vickery also brought up. He went to the Olympics with Brazil when they won it last year, and he actually gave a penalty away in each game.
That's when I heard that. I thought of Lascelles there.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't want that either.
Oh, Daz, come on.
Line him up. Yeah, you meant to be talking him up, Rich. Not
talking
him down.
Do you know what I mean? The thing is, though, you remember with the Olympic squad, it isn't the full international team. Do you know what I mean? So you would have better caliber of players around you, and you imagine if he's partnered up with someone like Botman, then you've got Trippier on the other side of him. I imagine people, obviously, there's the Spanish link with Atletico Madrid and Trippier, and if he comes inside him, there's that communication that they can go along, and they'll both be able to speak Spanish. I imagine Trippier would keep him on tour as well. So I just think it would be an ideal sign. As you said, he's got the pace, comfortable on the ball, right-footed. It seems to be the perfect foil if we were to get Botman in on the other side.
Definitely.
One to watch.
And what was interesting is that our man Chris Hord in the chat has mentioned that they've got a game tonight and he's currently not starting, which is not like him. He's actually on the bench tonight. That's not like him to be on the bench for Sevilla. He tends to play just as a first team starter. So very, very interesting. And CFC Florida, again, massive thanks to you as always. Contributions are amazing. And he said, sounds like Agent Linton is on the job with the Brazilians. So Big Joe throwing his weight around, getting the boys in, and certainly talking them up. That's for sure. But look, the comment on there, Daryl, one of the Southern mags that I speak to on a regular basis says, Pete, please talk about my boy Cantwell. Now, Daryl absolutely loves this boy, Todd Cantwell, and we're going to go to him now, Daryl. Don't you worry about it. Todd Cantwell links today that we could be seriously in for him, and the noises around some of the journalists in Norwich think that this is a deal that could actually get done in this month, in this window. Jordan, this kind of Todd Cantwell hadn't really been linked with us much recently. Up until today, it's kind of just blown into a relatively big story. What do you know on Todd Cantwell?
It's an interesting link, but I think the thing that struck me out about Cantwell is there was a lot of noise around him in Norwich's last Premier League, this Premier League season a couple of seasons ago, and obviously they went straight back down again. There was a lot of noise around him then, and there was I think he was linked with quite a few big teams in the same summer that Newcastle signed Jamal Lewis. I haven't really heard too much about Cantwell this season. I haven't heard sort of people raving about his performances, but it's an interesting one because I think he's still only 23 years old. His contract's up in the summer, I'm led to believe. So
it has got an option, an extra year in it, Jordan, which apparently they're going to exercise so they can get I think it's a transfer fee of about 15 million. I think that's what they're trying to push for.
Yeah, well, it's always an interesting one with Norwich because they are the typical selling club. We've spoken previously about the likes of like Tarkowski from Burnley, and there's the sort of Burnley don't want to sell, and that's Burnley's stance. Whereas Norwich seem to always be a team that are just willing to sell anyone as long as someone pays the money. So he's not a player I've heard that as high up on the list of targets, but he's certainly a player considered. Yeah. What happens going forward, I'm not sure. I think is he more of a number 10? I think Newcastle probably need more of a deep lying midfielder. So I'm just again going back to sort of looking at priorities. The priorities now is a centre back and a striker. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. I do think there's a genuine link, but I'm just not sure if it's anything that would happen anytime soon.
Mark, Todd Cantwell, he hasn't actually regularly played that much for Norwich this year. Now, the seasons previous, he was playing every week, and obviously his previous season in the Premier League, he was scoring goals, making deep runs from midfield. He really looked the part. Hasn't played or been as influential this season, but would that stop you from getting him in? Would you still take him?
Yeah, again, look, I think anything that improves the depth of the squad and gives you options is good. I think you just flashed up there, John Justice Allen, who's watching as usual, says Cantwell's not what we need this season, and I 100% agree. But is he somebody you might go back, in the summer for? 12 to 15 million, probably worth it. I think he's got a good future. He was on the bench. I think the last game Norwich played, he came off the bench. I've seen a couple of bits on Twitter there tonight. Is he another, is it an attitude problem? He's not really hitting the heights. He's not really delivering this season. Is it a bit of a Bellamy syndrome? Spenny Mag just put on there on Twitter. So it could be a multitude of things. I think if he's not hitting the heights and Norwich are not playing him in a really poor team, then there's something a bit off there. So I think he's not what we need. Agree with JGA. I think we just leave it be for now and maybe revisit it, but not at the moment. We need elsewhere.
No, Rich, what's your thoughts on Todd Cantwell?
It's a funny one. It's like what the lads have already said. He's not the sort of player that we need right now. It might be one where they're looking at it possibly as a cover sort of player, as someone on the bench sort of thing for this sort of season. I know Sky mentioned that one of the reasons why Newcastle were drawn him was because of his versatility, because he can play in quite a few different positions. Number 10, number 8, he can play left and right as well. So that was one of the reasons why they possibly wanted to go for it. I think the thing was with Cantwell is I remember when we were doing the match day lives and stuff like that, and Martin brought up Cantwell quite a lot, probably as much as what he has with Conor Gallagher. Because that was the two comparisons. I always remember that Mark used to say it was Cantwell and Gallagher, and
I'd take the latter if I was taking a player. I'd take Conor Gallagher all day long.
Yeah, I would as well. I completely agree with you on that one. I think he's actually missing Brenton Diaz since he's left because they had a good little partnership when they played at Norwich, and I think he's missing him because I think. Is it McLean that he's playing with? He's more of a workhorse sort of midfielder. He isn't creative, and perhaps that's what they're lacking. But something's obviously happened with him and Dean Smith because he was always one of the first names on the team sheet at Norwich, but now he's on the bench and he's only played twice since Smith's come in. So is it a clash of personalities, or does Smith just not fancy him, or But if it was to happen, I think it's another one, as I said, leave it at the end of the window. It's a versatile player to come in for next to nothing, really. He can cover us in various positions, but as Jordan said, there's other priorities first that we need before you start going with players like Cantwell.
Yeah, there could also be a little bit there as well with Billy Gilmore having come in and Gilmore maybe being part of his loan deal, being given games.
Possibly, yeah.
So. No, that's a fair point. And last one for the rumours before we move on to a player focus, and that's the Welsh wizard Aaron Ramsey. That seems to have moved again from the last time that we spoke. Interestingly, there was talk that he rejected an approach from Burnley, and even more interestingly, Massimo Allegri, the Juventus manager, has openly spoken about Aaron Ramsey and said that they are actively working on him leaving the club in this window. They want to move him on. He seems really, really keen to move on. Gordon, has there been any movement? Do you think there's a deal there?
Well, there's been a lot of talk around Aaron Ramsey for a while now. I think previously dating to the back end of last year as well. It's an interesting development because the Juventus manager has confirmed that he will leave this month and has a desire to return to England. But there's got to be a lot of money changes on his side. He's on big wages at Juventus, and to come back to the Premier League, he's going to have to drop his wage demands. I mean, we talk about Newcastle being the richest club in the world, but the new owners also want mugs, and they're not just going to hand out money to anyone that wants it, because it sets a dangerous precedence. So it is a deal that potentially could happen, but there has to be a big change on the players' side. As I say, the wage demands are astronomical. I'm not sure how much he's on at Juventus, but I'll take it a guess of probably 200 grand a week, potentially more.
I think he's on closer to 400.
I heard 400 as well.
Yeah, he's around 420k a week. Yeah, as far as I know.
Well, that's a joke, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah, you just retire.
Yeah, he could literally just retire, couldn't he? But no. The thing is with Ramsey as well, Newcastle being linked with a lot of high-profile players that are like bang out of form. One of them, I don't know if you're going to mention him later, but is Samuel Umtiti from Barcelona. Another one that plays for a big club, but ultimately it just hasn't hit form for a good while now. And I'd probably put Ramsey in that category just purely because of his injury problems. So did Newcastle want to take on a player like that for big wages, for him to maybe play 2 or 3 games and then potentially get injured? I know that's a risk with any player, but it seems to be more of a risk with Ramsey given the way his last couple of years of his career has played out. So it's certainly a deal that could happen, but there has to be a lot of change on the finances side for it to happen.
Yeah, Mark, Aaron Ramsey, he's played 60 minutes this season. Massimo Allegri clearly doesn't fancy him, and that's not down to him being injured. That's just down to the fact that he's just not being played at times.
Yeah.
Do we take a risk on someone that's played so little football? You know, we did something similar with Andy Carroll. Sorry, Chris, with Andy Carroll a couple of years ago, and we barely got a kick out of him. Do we take that plunge and make that same jump again with somebody that would be demanding considerably more wages?
I think there'll be a deal done for Ramsey. I think we'll see him come in. I think he could do a job. I know the injury piece is there. And I know you're looking at me because you want me to say I'd love him and Wilshere to link up again. And I will. I'll fangirl over Wilshere again. But yeah, look, I think you know, Jordan's right. It is a gamble. And again, you know, one of the comments from John Justice Allen there was players that we're signing now need to be in the team. They need to be players for now, not potential. So for me, he is a player that could come in, substantially improve our team, strengthen that midfield, bolt it down, play some decent ball. And if you get him through and it's a 6-month loan deal with a view to a deal, take it. Snap the hands off, take it, get Juve to pay some of the wages. You're still getting probably 200 grand off the books or whatever it is. If it's on 150, 160 a week, okay. But I think he'd do a massive, massive job for us. So I would be doing that deal. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, but when you look at what else we've got, why would you not take him?
I think that's a fair point. Daz, have you changed your mind yet?
3rd week in a row. Oh yeah, bring him in. He's my favorite player now. No. I'm going to go back to the others. Back to Dar. I think Darryl might be the only one that will agree with me. But I would bring in Todd Cantwell instead of Ramsey. Why? Because Ramsey, I've been on 400 grand a week. Is he hungry enough to come to Newcastle? All he's probably interested in now is playing for Wales and trying to get to the World Cup or the European Championship, whatever. But I don't know. I think
he wants to prove himself. I think he wants to reprove himself that he's still got what it takes to not only be in that Welsh team, but to do it in the Premier League. And I think he's got desire there.
The injuries, it just always sticks in my mind that he was always injured. Maybe I must have had him in my fantasy football team, and then he always got injured because I have this thing against him now. Yeah, on loan, okay, yeah, I don't mind that, but I'd give someone else younger a chance. It's over Ramsey. I'm in the minority, I know, on this one, but only on loan for me.
Okay, Rich, Ramsey, yes or no?
It's a tough one. Once again, he's a quality player in his day. You know, we've seen performances in when he's been playing for Wales. He ran some of the games when he was in the Euros in the summer. Once again, it's the injury. That's his injury records. That's the main concern. I know that we were speaking to someone today, and I put in our WhatsApp chat today. Apparently, that he hasn't played for the last 9 games. They said it was an injury, but apparently it's something to do with if he plays any more games, it adds bonuses onto his contract and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why Juventus haven't been playing him. But I think if we just look at these over the last few seasons since he's at Juventus and all his injury work, even when he was at Arsenal, his worst season for appearances was at Arsenal, and he was twice, and it was 23 appearances, which, you know, you're looking at that's the whole league season, you know, like 38. So he's missing 15 games there. That's quite bad. And if you look at Juventus for the last 2 years, 24 appearances and then 22. So he's still got that little bit of an injury possible jinx there. Obviously, I wouldn't look at this season. He's only been there played 3 games in the league. But as we've just said, that could be down to the fact that all these bonuses kicking in if he was to play and stuff like that. So if he is fit, and I imagine Newcastle's medical team would do a strenuous medical on him because of his history, and his wages were a hell of a lot less than what he's on at Juventus, because he's not going to get that at Newcastle. I'm sorry, I know we've got the richest owners in the world. He ain't going to get that at Newcastle. Then, it could be a case where he comes in and he might be on a basic salary, which is less, but if he stays fit and delivers, he might get a better bonus package in the background. That could be an option for him. But I imagine all the players, whoever comes in, if they stay up, will be on a nice bonus package anyway. So yeah, he's someone I would say he's better than what we've got. So and if he's fit enough and he can do a job, get past the medical, I'd bring him in.
There is no way he gets anywhere near that £400,000 a week at any other club for the rest of his career. The only reason he got that money is because he was on a free transfer.
That was the payday.
Exactly. There is no way. I personally, at the age that he's at, I think he'd do well to get 150 grand at any club that he moves to, even Newcastle. I genuinely think
100 grand would be doing well.
I don't even think he was on that much at Arsenal. I think he was around 100 grand at Arsenal.
Yeah. He went from 80 to 100 after the second season or something like that, I think, when he was playing alongside.
I think if he was to come in, you're looking at probably a similar sort of contract that what Trippier's just signed, similar age. Probably a 2.5 year contract with the extra year or something like that, if it was to go ahead. But he ain't going to get 400,000. As you both said, free transfer, you lump on the wages instead.
Fair point.
The interesting thing, you do talk about injuries as well, so any better?
Interesting point. And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that very, very soon.
Just saying.
Because we've got our brand new section for this evening called the Striker Search. And there's a lot. There's a lot.
It does do a wheel for us.
I know nothing about it.
The Striker Search is coming very, very soon. But before that, we're going to go to our player search. And Mark, I'm going to let you lead this because you didn't get a chance to talk about your key player focus. And it's a very, very interesting choice. So talk us through why you would like this player signed for Newcastle.
He is a 23-year-old Spanish. I think he'd be an excellent buy. He can play left back or wide field. He's not prolific on the goals, which you wouldn't expect, but he has over an average of 54 matches. He has a pass completion of 80+%, 83 over 20 games. So he's consistent. He's injury-free. Is hitting the team. His pass ability, his pace. I think is somebody that at 23-year-old Spanish under 23, probably around the fringes of the Spanish team, has Premier League experience this season, and I just think is a real possibility for somebody that we could probably go out, given the fee that he came into the Premier League for.
And what's his name?
His name is Mark Cucarella, playing for Brighton currently. So in our search for left back, I went when we were talking the other week and we were looking at player search. I tried to go a little bit outside of the box whilst we were looking at all players, and I've watched him a few games since he's been at Brighton, and I just think he's top class. I think he's got all the attributes you need. Interestingly, he plays higher up on that left midfield. He's been kind of Graham Potter's been pushing him further up. But his return of position, his backtracking, tackling ability, and I think just his first line ball pass completion rate, there's actually not that many better in the Premier League as it currently stands. He went to Brighton from Getafe for 15 million. And I think it's just on a 5-year deal, but I think Brighton, that was a savage piece of business from Brighton. But yeah, man.
Dan
Ashworth. Yeah, exactly.
Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth is the reason why they are so shrewd with their signings. And I was honest, Cucarella, I was surprised that he went to Brighton because he could be playing for a team at the top of the league. There was no doubt about it.
For all the qualities for me to be a top star and a full Spanish international, I think in the next 18 months. So he for me is one to watch. And if we were going to try and snap somebody up in the summer, I would be trying to go and get him.
Definitely. Good shout. Jordan, are you happy with that shout? Would you take Cucarella at Newcastle possibly in the summer?
Yeah, that's a really good shout. For all the reasons that Martin's just said there. But I think he's only just signed for Brighton. So if I'm going to be the journalist that puts the downer on things, then
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Bye, Jordan.
I
don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, Liam learnt the hard way.
But,
yeah, I think it's a future. I think you're right. He's not a now, and he's got that. It's a 5-year deal with Brighton, so he's going to get at least 3 there before you're getting a sniff, and he's looking to maybe move on. But
you never know. You never know. In terms of Dan Ashworth potentially coming in as well, you don't know. You mentioned that link before as well for the future, 3 or 4 years down the line. Who knows? But yeah, good show. Good show.
Great stuff.
That's it.
Great stuff. Let's get a few questions from the chat before we move on to the next section. I know there's been a number of stars. There's been some fantastic questions. Always are in the chat with regards to the Fully Loaded Transfer Show. But let's see if there's any good questions in the chat. So Tom Dixon. Newcastle United and Atalanta have been offered the chance to sign Marseille striker Bamba Dieng. Marseille's asking price thought to be around 15 million euros for a player whose contract expires in 2024. Have you heard anything about this? I saw this link today, Jordan. Is there anything that you're aware with regards to that?
Yeah, players that are, because I think you'll be heading to the African Cup of Nations with Senegal. I think I read somewhere today. And any player that is heading to the African Cup of Nations, I would sort of cast doubt on, purely because in terms of the striker situation, it is now probably a matter of urgency. And ideally, Newcastle want a striker in before the game against Watford. So while that could be an option potentially later in the transfer window, if there is someone to pop up now, then I'd imagine Newcastle would strike that deal, because, as I say, there is an element of desperation in terms of the striker search, just purely because of Wilson's injury. Had Wilson stayed fit, then you could probably afford to hold out a little bit longer. But unfortunately, as I say, with Wilson now rumoured potentially to be out until April potentially, or at least late March. And they've got a big game against Watford, which ultimately they have to win. And that's where the new owners are looking at the minute. They're looking at that Watford game and trying to get, as I say, at least a central defender and a striker in before then. So while he may be an option further down the line, if there's someone else that becomes available before him, then I imagine Newcastle will look to look a striker deal. But in terms of names on strikers, it's a really, really difficult department to report on in the minute, because there's so many sort of different names popping up. And strikers are so difficult to find. I think I've said previously, but particularly in the January transfer window, if you've got a striker banging form, clubs don't ultimately want to sell, and if they do want to sell, then you have to pay a lot of money. But maybe Newcastle are in the situation now where they're going to be without Callum Wilson. Maybe they do have to pay above the odds to get a striker in.
I think you've made a great point. And you know what? I was going to go to some other questions, but let's just segue into the striker search, because we've got a lot to get through. I think you've started a really good point, and we'll start with one of Daz's favourites, one of his key player focuses, Sardar Azmoun. He has been linked, whether it was through Daz's, I
don't think so.
Pitch on him last week, but he has been linked with Newcastle. Now, we did talk about last week that he was linked with Lyon, and it was a not very expensive deal, and there was a talk that they wanted Moussa Dembele moved on in order to get this player in. Now, Newcastle have been linked with him, more recently in the last few days, as we can see here, looking to hijack the move from Lyon and take him in as little as 3 million, which is just sounds crazy for the goal return. Is there any truth from what you know, Jordan, with regards to this potential deal?
No, I think Daz is generally onto something. And the
Don't big him up, man.
Oh.
Come on, don't big him up.
Look.
Come
Oh,
on, man.
I'll have my own show soon. Watch out.
But it was a good point was made last week in terms of the Saudis wanting to find a poster boy over that neck of the woods or over the Middle East, and he does fit the bill. Certainly, when I looked into the player, it did look like his deal to Lyon was all but done, but it looks like the pitch has changed. So who knows? Daz has made an excellent shout, and I would put that on the one to watch list. A low fee by the sounds of it. So yeah, one to watch.
You know I'm clipping this, Jordan. This is going on YouTube.
We are never going to hear the end of this now. If that deal happens, I tell you,
we just need
hear the end of it.
Finelli from AC Milan to pop up now, and then
Yeah, there we go. Laughing then.
Definitely. Right, Mark, I'm going to come to you next. Heavier links today. Linked with a Liverpool striker, Divock Origi. Possible links with him coming to Newcastle, possibly for as little as £10 million. And at the moment, they are potentially weighing up some offers. So yeah, that's a story that's been put in by Luke Edwards on the Telegraph today about Divock Origi potentially coming in to replace Callum Wilson, that Jordan has already said could be out for a significant period of time. What are your thoughts about the possibilities of signing someone like Divock Origi? Would you say that was a good replacement for Wilson?
I think we spoke about him a few times on Loaded Mag about trying to get a hold of him. I think he's a player that's got Premier League experience. He can score goals. He's scored important goals for Liverpool. It would just surprise me if Klopp would let him go. Would be my only question around that. Why I would be hugely surprised if he was allowed to leave Liverpool. Certainly in a January window. But having said that, he's not playing regular ball. He's behind that front three. But then, it's a hard one to call. Would I take him at St. James's? Absolutely. I think he would be fantastic. He's certainly not as injury prone as our current number 9. He'd score goals, and I think if you stuck him in a black and white shirt and popped him up front, I think he'd be adored by the fans at St. James's. So, yeah, look, I mean, if it's 10 million and we can get him for that, absolutely snap Liverpool's hands off and go get him. But I would be surprised if Liverpool let him go. I think that could be a little bit of paper talk there. Perhaps our colleague below us might know a bit more about that.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying it's. I know over the years Jurgen Klopp has actually been open to letting Divock Origi go. The player is well respected by Jurgen Klopp, given for what he's done for the club. I mean, he's been behind the Magic 3, if you like, for quite a few seasons now, but has scored probably one of the most important goals in Liverpool's history, two of the most important goals in Liverpool's history. That Barcelona game in the semi-final, and then he scored in the final against Spurs as well. So I think the thing with Origi, he's on a generous wage packet at Liverpool. For a player that hasn't really scored a whole lot of goals just purely because he hasn't played, I think that's putting a lot of teams off. But if Newcastle's interest is genuine, I haven't heard that it is. I think a deal could be had there. But I know that there's other teams interested as well. I think it was mentioned in the report by Luke Edwards as well that potentially, like a Lazio or another Italian team are also interested. So you won't be short of interest, but say it's the wage problem as well, which you wouldn't really associate with Divock Origi, but he is on a generous wage package. So I believe he will be an option. But again, there's so many striker names being thrown at me, and obviously you guys as well watching out. So many striker names per day, so many new names per day. It's really hard to keep track. So I'm sure the truth will come out soon, but it's just
hopefully before the WAP again.
Yeah, at least one.
I wonder with Origi's thing is that I wouldn't have seen Klopp letting him go, but obviously Jordan knows a bit more. But I wonder, is that I suppose that piece changed a bit because of how well Jota's been playing, and kind of even pushed Firmino down the pecking order as well. Like, so I think he's probably a fifth choice at this stage. So maybe that does open it up, and maybe it'll be an interesting one. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Do you think he's been disrespected? Because I think Divock Origi's been disrespected at Liverpool, because he's scored some important goals that have got them. You talk about the Champions League. You talk about the goal that sticks in my mind is the goal at St James's Park that won them the game in Rafa's last season. We went toe to toe with Liverpool at their very best, and we were better than them on the day, in my opinion, and they got lucky with that goal. Yeah, we should have took something from that game. And he pops up with big moments. I think he's a talented striker, but even when Firmino's not played well, he never got in the team. Yeah. And then Jota comes in and goes straight ahead of him. And yes, he's proven to be a very, very good signing. I just think he's been disrespected. And I think it goes on to some of the points that have already been made by you guys, in that, it seems like Jurgen Klopp is quite happy for him to leave, because I think Divock Origi does want to leave. At his age now, he needs to be playing regular football. And there's no better place to come and play at St James's Park, with the fans bouncing every week, with a team that can be basically moulded around him. He's going to play every minute of every game. It's going to give him a chance to guarantee his spot at the World Cup, because it's not guaranteed, because he doesn't play every week. And I just think it would be a great move. And for as little as 10 million, it's just a no-brainer. Me and Rich talked about the Divock Origi really early on when the takeover happened, and it was a name that we kind of put out there. Rich, would you still take him now, even with all these major links?
Yes, I would. I think you've got to look at how his goal record for Liverpool, bear in mind how many minutes he actually gets. And as you said, all the goals he tends to get are valuable, important goals. He's still in the Belgian squad, even with how little first team games he gets for Liverpool as well. He's, as you're right, Pete, he's at that stage now where he's got to start playing more regular. And Newcastle's the perfect place for him, especially with now that Wilson's probably going to be out for the majority of the second half of the season. I think the only downside to Origi at the minute is, unfortunately, that with the AFCON on, you're looking at Mane and Salah are away all of January. So if that is a deal that is going to happen, you're probably looking right to the last week of the window. I think that all depends on how far Egypt and Senegal go in the tournament as well. You might get them a week before the end if they're back, if they've been knocked out of the AFCON. I think it's definitely one to watch, and it's someone I'd certainly take at Newcastle, and I think he'd be valued for money, and he'd be an absolute snip as well.
I agree. I think it'd be a terrific signing. Rich, I'm going to stick with you.
Go on.
Because we're going to move on.
I'm just wondering which one you're coming to, that's all.
It's the striker that we've been talking about for a long time, but we've kept him aside, ready for this week. Now, this is a striker that both myself and Rich, have kept a close eye on for a number of weeks now, and he's not disappointed us, has he?
No, he hasn't.
And I'm really excited the potential of maybe signing him. Not guaranteed to sign him in January. Jordan may know a little bit more in a second, but actually, even potentially in the summer, it would be a terrific signing. But Richie, take it away.
I take it we're going for the Portuguese option, are we? The one that you've been hankering me for to be doing, is be player profile and everything for the last few weeks, but I didn't take the hint. Yeah, seriously, this lad is he's just a phenomenal talent. He's at Benfica. He's 22-year-old, full Uruguayan national already. His name's Darwin Núñez. This lad is some talent. So far this season, 13 goals in 13 games for Benfica. He's got 6 caps for Uruguay, 2 goals. Bear in mind, he's still not even a starter for Uruguay because he's got Suarez and Cavani ahead of him. But obviously, you know what Benfica are like. They do tend to, nurture the younger players really well. We'll go back to like João Felix and stuff like that as an option before he went to Atletico Madrid. But this lad is a serious talent. We've got a little clip of him as well. Just a little show about what he's actually capable of as well. See, I think the one thing you look at he doesn't look like he's a striker who's really tall. And you look at the first goal there, his ability in the box to turn the defender. Tall strikers are meant to be that good on the ground as well. He's got it all, and I think we're looking at strikers of that age. He's definitely within the top 5 of players in Europe at the moment. I think you've got to look at Haaland and Mbappe, who are obviously they're the echelon top 1 and 2, and then you've got that next 3, which Núñez is in those 3rd, 4th, or 5th place. He's a phenomenal player, and I know that Nixon's had talks, and I think Jordan will probably back this up from what's been said in media. Steve Nixon really likes him. He's had a lot of talks with Benfica. They don't really want to let him go because they're having a fantastic season in the league and the Champions League. They've beaten Barcelona twice this season, so they're probably more willing to sell in the summer if they are. But 50 million for someone like Darwin Núñez is fantastic.
I agree wholeheartedly. Jordan, have you heard much about Darwin Núñez?
Yeah, what Rich said there is he's obviously an emerging talent across Europe, and has a lot of big names linked with him, and keeping an eye on him. You've got Manchester City, Chelsea, even Borussia Dortmund as well, which Borussia Dortmund seem to be the step that every sort of young promising striker takes. There's been quite a few examples when you had Erling Haaland who's made that step, and even the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang who stepped out of St. Etienne to go to Borussia Dortmund. So whilst it would be an excellent deal for Newcastle, they're in they're facing strong competition for his signature. Would Benfica let him go now? Possibly if the money was tabled, but I'm not sure that would be a deal that would happen. It's certainly at this stage anyway. He's a young player, and a lot of pressure will be on to come in and hit the ground running straight away. Is that good for a player of his age to come and be dragged into relegation battle when he's currently playing European football? There's a lot of different factors to it. Looks really good on the eye. Would be a great signing on paper, but I just question whether at this stage in Newcastle's sort of development under the Saudi regime that it would be a realistic signing at this stage.
It's definitely one to watch, as you've said, Jordan. One to keep an eye out. I'm still holding some hope that there might be an end of the window splash of some cash, a statement signing that could be done late on. I'm still holding some hope for that. But, the one thing you don't have to splash with Wiltshire at the end, Mark, is cash.
There is a very high budget though for medical resources.
That is true. But look, I myself and Rich, we rate him highly, and there's a number in the chat that clearly agree. But Daz, let's not just play one clip. let's play another, because there's another Nunes clip, and I
want to go for the other clip?
I want the guys in the chat and the girls in the chat to see a little bit more of him, because that's how highly we rate him.
And we need a bit of a stadium noise with this one, I think, as well. So let's go with this one.
Do you guys think he's got
Richie at the back end?
he's got a bit of the he's got a bit of the Cavani about him. Do you think?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Do you know? I was thinking from the first original clip, and I've watched a few on YouTube. Do you know who he reminds me of sometimes? Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah.
In his prime at Manchester United, the way he turns inside the box, he just had that ability to be able to head one way in the box, completely change an angle or turn and leave a defender sideways and get that goal. Just had that knack. Nunes reminds me very much of a young Van Nistelrooy.
It's that first goal, Mark. The one with on the first clip where he
turns him,
he cuts left, cuts in on his right, makes the player, and then just finishes. I agree. I think
there's a few more on YouTube, and if you kind of had flicked it on, but you didn't actually know who it was, you would say on some of his goals it was Van Nistelrooy. I've watched a few of the clips of him now on YouTube, and he does remind me of a very, very early stage Van Nistelrooy. That same just kind of raw talent, if that's probably the right way to say it.
Yeah, he's a young super talent. So plenty more to discuss. But I think, Daz, you want to say something?
Bit of breaking news there. I see there's a comment after coming in, and I want to go straight to this comment. It's from one of our members. It's from Jeff. Jeff, and there's a question about Stones. So we have a new section. There's a new section we've entered, especially for Jeff. It's Grapevine Jeff. So tell us, anyone know anything about Stones? This is a new section in the show. We get the same question every week from Jeff, so we've created a new section for it. Grapevine Jeff. So Pete, anything on Stones?
So nothing on Stones just yet. I'm not giving up hope, Jeff. I do believe Stones will play for Newcastle United. Maybe not in this window, but certainly looking at in the summer, provided we stay in the league, which I believe we will. And I said it before, and I say it again. When he's wearing the shirt, the black and white shirt, I'm coming for you. Okay? I'm going to come for you for every time you come for me with regards to Stones. I never forget. Never, ever. Love it.
Jeff will be back next week with more Grapevine Jeff.
Love it. Right. Another striker and a familiar face wrote the story on this particular striker, and it's Luka Jovic. So Luka Jovic has been linked with Newcastle United in recent days, and it was our good friend Liam Kennedy who wrote the story. So Newcastle United set to reignite interest in Real Madrid star, with the ex-Celtic man also under consideration. I think the ex-Celtic man is referring to Moussa Dembele. So look, Jordan, I'll let you talk about this particular story and this particular link with Luka Jovic. Is that still a potential?
Yeah, well, Luka Jovic was a player that was first offered to Newcastle last year. Obviously didn't happen. And I think he might have had a loan spell somewhere else. I can't think of the team off the top of my head, but I do believe he went on loan somewhere.
Back to Germany.
Yes.
He was at Frankfurt, wasn't he? Eintracht Frankfurt.
That's where he was signed from, and then he went back on loan for half a season. Yeah. Yeah,
so the interest is came back. He is an option to Newcastle. We'll have to wait and see on that front. It wasn't a story to say that Newcastle are going to sign Luka Jovic. It's just saying that he is an option to the football club. In the same article, Moussa Dembele We discussed him last week, but Moussa Dembele is a potential option as well. It's just two strikers. I say Newcastle are sort of putting the feelers out to see what's available, and they're two of the names that have popped up. So who knows? In terms of strikers, a lot of names have been, as I mentioned, a lot of names have been thrown at me, but they're two strikers I can confirm that have came on Newcastle's radar since the window opened last week.
Do you think they're likely to be permanent transfer if Luka Jovic came in, or is it looking? Would you think it would look more like a loan? Because we've got 4 loans to play around with. I think with all the transfers and all the money that's been bandied about with Newcastle and certainly the players that we've been linked with recently, we do still have 4 loans that we can get in. Do you think it's more likely to be that with Luka Jovic?
Yeah, I think Jovic would be a loan, and then if you look further to Moussa Dembele, I think a deal like that would potentially be a loan to buy. I'm not sure Jovic has been completely written off by Real Madrid just yet. So you never know. A good second half of the season in the Premier League, one of the best leagues in the world, could then propel his Real Madrid career again. But yeah, Jovic, I'd imagine loan. I doubt there'd be an option to buy on that. And then the Moussa Dembele deal, I think Lyon are fairly keen to offload him. So say 2 players just to keep an eye on. Say nothing's close, but there are two options for Newcastle.
Wow, interesting. Luka Jovic, boys. Again, when the takeover went through, and we sat there for probably an hour and a half talking about all the players that we were going to sign. Luka Jovic.
We all said Jovic. Yeah.
We all said.
Yeah.
Is that what we need right now?
Yeah, I think. Look, he's a quality player. I think he scores goals. I think he would be a great fit. Again, kind of. I think he's got something to prove still. I think he obviously went to Madrid, I think it was, and then kind of really didn't feature. Kind of got odd games, but was going into such a big team at the time. Was probably just the wrong time and wrong time in completion. But yeah, I think he'd be a smash at Newcastle, and I think if he's there to be grabbed, he would be a absolute definite for me. Obviously, there's a few other names touting around, but just to follow up, we were talking about Ramsey before. Highland Geordie, who I follow on Twitter, who's normally pretty good with what's coming and not, says that Ramsey and one other deal are very much well advanced. Ramsey is a loan with a view to permanent win-win situation for the club, but looks like it is close to being done.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so could well be some movement in the next few days on that. So something to keep an eye out on. I'm going to move on because we've got a few. I've got a few more strikers that I want to talk about, and I want to get the lads' opinions on this as well as Jordan's. But Jordan, I want your opinion in particular on this because we've talked about him before, and it's Brenton Diaz. So he's been linked with a move to Newcastle United, as it says from the Mirror. A potential £20 million bid. Now, he scored 20 goals this season. He is the hot commodity in the Championship at the moment. I think there's a lot of teams linked with him. Really, really interesting stats with regards to his playing stats because he started. He scored 8 goals in like 87 games for Blackburn as Ben Brenton, and then he goes to the Copa America in the summer. Adds the Diaz to his name, and then hits 20 in half a season. And obviously, he's a regular, being called up for Chile now, and he seems to have a real new lease of life, and still very, very young. He's 20, 21 years old.
22.
Oh, 22, sorry. So he's still very, very young and he's got time to develop. But I know you've talked about Ben Brenton Diaz before, so. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, you mentioned there about sort of the players' rise over the last 12 months or so, where he was at Nottingham Forest, got sold to Blackburn Rovers, and to be honest, was sort of a nobody. But then he gets called up for Chile all of a sudden, and then his career sort of propelled. 20 goals in the Championship before the New Year's even out is an excellent record, and one that alone attract interest. Just with Championship players in general, up and coming Championship players always seem to generate a little bit of interest. We've seen in the past that I've mentioned it before, but we see Adam Armstrong do it last year. Ben Roma, Jared Bowen, obviously both at West Ham now. It's one to watch, I think. I do believe there's some interest there, particularly in the year when Newcastle nearly signed Jared Bowen. This is a piece that Liam wrote, that Ben Brenton actually came on the agenda at Newcastle. He was actually a player considered. So there has been past interest, and I believe that's under Steve Nixon. So if there's past interest, and and that was before he's went on this unbelievable goal scoring run as well. So I'd be surprised if Newcastle weren't keeping an eye on him, as other Premier League clubs will be as well.
I think he was being scouted by Nixon.
Yeah. So who knows? Definitely one to watch. I believe Blackburn will try and commend the high fee.
Yeah.
Maybe as January tends to be, an inflated price tag where you maybe look in the summer. I think he's got 6 months left in his contract, but he's got an option for a further year. So I'd imagine Blackburn will activate that. They've done the same with Adam Armstrong. I think Adam Armstrong had a year left on his contract, and they offloaded him for, was it 20 million to Southampton. So it's one to watch. I'm not sure it's one that will happen right now. Maybe at the end of the transfer window, if Newcastle haven't signed the striker, then he might be someone that they go for. But certainly a player of interest, given Newcastle have had previous experience in the player.
No, it's an interesting point. And what's even more interesting about that situation with Brenton Diaz is that Blackburn are heavily linked with signing Ollie Burt from Sheffield United as a potential replacement, or certainly that's what Sheffield United and Blackburn fans think that other potential deal may mean that Ollie Burt comes in, which may allow Brenton Diaz to move on. So you are 100% right. It's definitely one to kind of keep an eye on. We're going to move on. We've got a couple more before we move on to the next section, and it's Anthony Martial. Today, again, linked with Newcastle United. Craig Hope has said that he's now back on the agenda again, and it's one to keep a close eye on. I know a couple of other journalists have jumped on the back of that and said, yes, that is something that could potentially be done. Are you hearing the same, Jordan?
Yeah, it's a name that's cropped up, but it's a strange one because you see names like that, and it's still crazy to think that Newcastle all being linked with names like that. Don't get us wrong that Martial has had a difficult season at Manchester United and hasn't really been on the top of his game for the last maybe season and a half, but that would be I think an unbelievable signing for, say, 6 months. As previously mentioned, I think by Craig Hope, he wasn't high on the priority list, or even on the list. If he was, it was very, very low down. But because of Callum Wilson's injury, I think Newcastle are exploring a lot of options. So the thing with Martial is that Manchester United don't want to let any players go because of the COVID situation, which Craig Hope also mentioned as well. So it's one to watch. I mean, to get a player of his calibre, I think would be an excellent addition. I'd say quite similar really to Callum Wilson maybe, but obviously Callum Wilson's goal scoring record is much better Premier level, but it's just a quick player, has the ability to play in the wide areas as well. So he gives that option. So yeah, it would be a yes for me to get him in, and it's one to watch, yeah.
There's a few in the chat that are not as positive as Jordan. Gary's in the chat. One or two others are saying that they wouldn't take him. He's an interesting character, lads. Anthony Martial. I don't think anyone can question that the talent's there, but I think people question the attitude of the player. But boys, What are your thoughts, Martin? You're nodding your head there with regards to Martial when I mentioned about attitude. Is that something that kind of puts you off him being a target for us?
Yeah, I think he's got the talent, but I think I've seen a couple of clips, and I think somebody threw in the chat there, Roy Keane even saying he wouldn't go anywhere near Martial. And I kind of have a lot of respect for Roy Keane. I kind of, I think he can call a good player, certainly with the career that he had. And I think you've seen it from Manchester United when Martial hasn't been playing. He tends to sulk. And that would worry me coming into a team that is, as we are currently, battling relegation. If things don't kind of fire up within those first few games and it turns a little bit sour, just where his head would be at. I think he's got that talent, but is he for what we need right now? I don't think so. I think I'd rather take the lad from Blackburn than I would take Martial. You'd probably get less wages. Maybe he's a higher fee in, but I think I wouldn't want to dice with the attitude. So it's probably a no from me. Yeah, really.
Rich, would you agree? Anti-Martial?
Yeah, I agree with Mart. Don't get me wrong. On his day, I've seen him play. He's been unplayable sometimes. But I think if you've got to question his temperament, he does seem to throw his toys out the pram quite a bit. And as a striker, he's not very prolific either. He's more of that. When he first went to Man United, everyone thought he was in the same ilk as what Thierry Henry was when he first came over from Italy. He's more of a winger that then developed to go inside. So for me, he's not. Other people are saying, look at Lingard and stuff like that. I think he's a better option than Martial. Obviously not a striker though, but if we're looking at attacking sort of area, then that's probably one that he's still got aspirations of trying to force his way into the England squad. So that he's going to keep fighting like he did last season when he went on his 6-month loan at West Ham. Whereas Martial, I don't think you'll know what you'll get. And you look at some of the French players we've had in the past, a lot of them have ended up being mercenaries, and this season we can't afford to carry them.
I'm finding it hard not to agree with you there, Rich, but Daz, can we afford to pass by someone with that type of talent that's played at the highest level, played Champions League football, fought for titles, won trophies at Manchester United? Are we in a position to kind of, to pass that opportunity by if that opportunity arises?
No, we're not, Pete. And when his name was first linked right after the takeover to us, it wasn't one that I even considered, but it kind of grew on me, and it could work. And I'm going to back Jordan. The other lads let him down. I'm going to back Jordan because he wrote a lovely article about us and this show during the week. So he deserves some backing. For me, when he came first, Martial, it was the kind of hyped as the next Thierry Henry. He didn't reproduce that form. Has he got a serious run of game? Maybe he did at the start, but he seems has always have been a bit part player. And I know we can't afford to give him a long run of games. We've only 19 games left this season, but I think if you put a bit of faith in him, and Eddie Howe could get something out of him, so. I'd go for him over the Blackburn lad, because I think the Blackburn guy is going to be grand in the Championship, but can he cut it in the Premier League? And I know Martial hasn't proved it yet either. I know PSG were linked to Martial at one stage as well to try and take him back to France. He's French. He does get a bit sulky at times, but we could get something out of him. So I'm going to back Jordan.
We've had a fair share of sulky French players.
I think the good thing with Martial compared to Henry is Martial has never used his hand to score a goal. Just saying. Just for Daz, I'm just saying.
Thanks, Martin.
You went there. But,
just saying, lad. There's a video of it.
The big hand.
Right, okay. We're going to go across the pond now, because there are certain players over the pond that we haven't yet discussed, and there are new links, new updates, and I don't think there's any better person to go to than Lee Davey for another update. He's agreed to join us again to give his thoughts on what has been a bit of a whirlwind 5-6 days in the transfer window. So another 2-part piece, lots of links and updates coming.
Hi everyone, Lee Davey here. Thanks for having me back here to discuss Newcastle United and some of the transfer dealings, potential transfer dealings that could be happening out of French football and Ligue 1 in particular. One of the first names that's certainly been brought to my attention as of late is Seko Fofana, the captain of Lens, 26 years old, midfielder, and look, there's a lot worse midfielders Newcastle United could be in for. We've got a guy here who is in the top of his game. Signed from Udinese back in the summer of 2020 for Lens as a game promotion from Ligue 2 to Ligue 1, and nearly qualified for the Europa League within their first season. Just missed out, but a great chance of qualifying for Europe this season, and a lot of it is down to this guy. Just for me, he's a midfielder with it all. He has a very combative style. He's technical. He's a good passer. He scores goals. He's a number 6 and number 8 molded into one. So you've got literally the complete midfielder as it stands right now. He does have a contract that will run until 2024. He signed a 4-year deal upon signing. And whilst I'd be surprised to see him move in this window, I'd be even more surprised to see him at Lens past the summer transfer window as we get into the start of next season. So it's definitely something, if Newcastle can do something in this window, they're getting themselves an absolute bargain. And, you know, if not, then I'm sure there's going to be plenty of suitors in the summer. So we'll see what happens with Seko Fofana, but certainly for me, one of the best players in French football over the calendar year of 2021. So we'll see where that goes with Seko Fofana. Whether he goes to Newcastle or not, I'd definitely recommend you keep an eye on this player. Really, really good footballer. Second one is Romain Favre, an attacking midfielder for Brest, 23 years old. His contract runs till 2025, but he just missed out on a move to AC Milan in the summer, which he was very frustrated about. It fell through at the last minute, but it really looked like he was going to go to the Rossoneri. It didn't happen. And I'm sure, just like Seko Fofana, that he will get his move eventually. He's very technically gifted. He's got a great eye for goals, scores goals, great penalty taker. And I know Newcastle United love a midfielder with style, with swag, with that panache, that ability to take players on. He's got it. He's got it in abundance. And he may remind you, if you've watched him play before, of a young Hatem Ben Arfa. Difference with Favre is that his temperament is a lot better, I can assure you of that. But really good player, again, worth keeping his eye on over at Brest. He's having another really solid season there, and certainly would be a good addition to Newcastle United. I could see him fitting in there pretty well. But again, we'll see how that goes, because I also know that Milan might look to be back in for him as well, if he's still at Brest come the summer. Duje Chaletakar, a centre-half for Marseille, is another name that's been muted amongst the press in terms of those players linked with Newcastle United. He's a Croatian centre-back. He has a contract until 2023. He's big, tall, strong defender, 6'4". He signed for Marseille in 2018. He's been a bit of a mixed bag with him. He's had good seasons followed by not so good seasons, so a lot of inconsistency. At the start of this season, he found himself very much out in the cold with Jorge Sampaoli. He contracted COVID first and foremost, and then found it really hard to get back into the starting 11 after that. He did find his way back in, but as we got closer to the winter break, he's been very much in and out of the team, so very up and down performances. For me, I think there's better options out there for Newcastle United, if I'm going to be honest. I know he was linked with West Ham last summer, and he's, there's been one or two times that he's been close to a move from Marseille. We'll see what happens with this one. I think there's better options, as I said, for Newcastle United, but maybe he can do a job for the club if that was to be pulled off in any way, shape or form.
part one down. I'm going to start with Seko Fofana. I think his name has started to be rung around, certainly his transfer window in the last week or two, because I think, people are really starting to see the talent that he's showing at Lens. It was interesting to know that they played Lille in the cup the other night. I think it was last night, and they ended up knocking them out on penalties. And what was so interesting about that is after the link to Newcastle, everybody watched that game. Everyone was watching it for Botman, but also for Seko Fofana. And he scored 2 goals. They were 2-0 down against Lille. He scored both of the goals to bring them back. One of them was in the last minute, and then if I'm right in thinking, he scored the winning penalty as well that won the game. So he is a super talented player, and as Lee said, he's got the makings of really revamping this midfield if we were able to get him in. I do believe if we were to not pursue him in this window, that it would be very, very difficult to get him in the summer, because I know that a lot of teams would be after him. But Jordan, Seko Fofana, is it a name that you've started to hear a little bit more about in the sort of the circle with regards to transfers?
Yeah, the interest in Seko Fofana is genuine from what I've been told. I mean, obviously a player which Lee give great detail there, but is ultimately a midfield sort of powerhouse. But the thing I'm being told about Fofana is, you mentioned there, Pete, about potentially being difficult to sign in the summer, but that is potentially where Newcastle might look to strike a deal. So in terms of right now, possibly not, but he is a player on Newcastle's radar. And I think the good thing with Fofana as well is I don't think he's went the African Cup of Nations, so the option, so the option is there to potentially strike. But from what I've been told, it's more of some interest. But has previously played in been at a Premier League club in the form of Man City, didn't really get an opportunity. Has went away, I think, has switched between Italy and France, and is obviously now back in France, doing really well there. So definitely a player of interest, but maybe one that could wait until the summer. And if they do wait the summer, then it is difficult because there could be other teams that come in from. But yeah, a name that is on the radar, can confirm that. Yeah,
definitely. Which you've been aware of the name Seko Fofana as well in recent days, and if I'm right in thinking, you watched the game as well the other night against Lille. What would he do to our midfield if we were to bring him in?
Well, not being funny, there's probably a lot of players that could come in our midfield and take it to the next level, but he definitely could take it to the next level. No, he's just exceptional. To be honest, apart from until this season, I hadn't really seen much of him. But what I've seen this season, it's phenomenal. Just like Brian's actually literally just touched, I was about to say it. Could you imagine having a midfield with him and Joe Linton in it? The way that Joe Linton's played at the minute. It's seriously exceptional talent as well. Do you know what I think that this is? We all thought about it. It's like Christmas come round again, and all these names that we're getting linked to, and it's like, we never dreamed of it. Well, go back 12 months, we were struggling to get a deal for Hamza Chowdhury, and now we're getting people linked like Seko Fofana in the midfield. It's like chalk and cheese. Do you know what I mean? But that's an easy decision. If we can get that done now, I think the longer we leave it, the more chance you go towards the summer. I think that's when you start to invite other clubs to start getting involved in the bidding war. I think this window is a perfect window for Newcastle to strike and lay down a marker.
Definitely. I would agree. Mort, have you seen much of Seko Fofana?
Not loads, to be honest. Obviously, you lads were kind of touting the name around a bit the last couple of weeks, so I haven't really had much look at him. Much like you lads, I was kind of keeping an eye on the game the other night, and obviously seeing him getting on on the sheet, but certainly from the couple of clips I looked at today, kind of prior to coming on the show, I was saying to myself, he kind of could be our Yaya Toure, that kind of big bustling powerhouse, box to box, getting stuck in. So yeah, for me, I agree with Rich, and I know Jordan's kind of saying, it could be a summer thing, but I think if you really want to get a hold of a player and you want to build on that future and build that midfield and team, I think you need that spine that all good kind of champions teams have been built on. So good goalkeeper, great defender, strong midfield powerhouse, and a top striker. So I think for me, I would be busting the backside to go and get a hold of him now and do a deal and strike, as Richie said.
And Gary certainly agrees. He's gone. It's a thumbs up for him with regards to Seko Fofana. But look, don't take our word for it. We've got a little snippet here of his abilities on the ball, and just look the way he just drives and shifts the ball to score this goal. If I'm right in thinking it was the equaliser in the last minute the other night.
There we go.
C'est la dernière minute, hein. Le tout pour le tout. Jonathan Klaus pour le frapper, la tête de Kakuta, pas terminé avec Fofana. Face à lui, il y a Renildo. Fofana est passé. Fofana pour la frappe. Fofana! Oui! Fofana! Fofana! Le doublé! Il y aura une sorte de tir au but pour départager. Lance de Lille. 2-2. Exceptionnel Thomas. C'est magnifique. Magnifique, doublé de Onana.
Oui.
He's a talent. He really is, and I'd be excited to have him. But Romain Favre was another name that Lee talked about. Now, I can't tell you how talented this boy is. And Lee made the reference of Hatem Ben Arfa.
Yeah.
And he really is. And you guys are going to see this in a second because you'll be able to see the quality that he has on the ball. We talked about Todd Cantwell, who would be a fantastic option and a young up-and-coming option as a sort of a number 10. But this man, Romain Favre, would be the ideal signing. He is the Ben Arfa mould. The attitude's there, the quality's there, the touch. He just has that X factor. And he's playing in a team that he's too good for. It's as simple as that. So I'm not going to say any more. I just want you guys to watch the clip and just watch the quality that comes out from this guy.
And it's we here as well. Luxury but class.
Jesus. He's a super talent. He's got Velcro on his boots. The ball just sticks to him. But Jordan, Romain Favre, have you heard much about him in terms of not just his ability, but obviously any links to Newcastle?
No, not a name that's been on the agenda, but yeah, my ears pricked up there as soon as I mentioned Ben Arfa.
Yeah, me too.
But I hope he's more of a Ben Arfa rather than a Florian Thauvin. It's always difficult with French players, and as Newcastle's previous transfer policy was when they signed quite a lot of French players. it was really difficult to judge because you had the likes of, Yuan Kabai, for example, and Hatem Ben Arfa, who came in and did brilliantly, but you also had a lot of Liga signings that weren't very good. So I suppose it can go either two ways, but you can tell he's got raw ability. It's just about nurturing that. But as I say, raw ability has also led Newcastle to Ben Arfa, and raw ability has also led Newcastle to Florian Thauvin. So, hopefully he's more of a Ben Arfa.
Yeah, he was actually very close to, in the summer, going to AC Milan. They were very, very interested in taking him. And again, this could be the window that if we're going to get a player like Romain Favre, it's now, because, the likes of AC Milan, and I am convinced that not just AC Milan, but many other top European teams are going to be sniffing him out because, as I say, he's too good for the team that he's playing in. He's far too good. Rich, Romain Favre, I think you've heard some links, haven't you?
Yeah, I heard some links. I'll be honest with you, and I actually turned to you when I was talking to you about these players this week. And he's actually one player that I haven't really spent much time looking at. So everything that I've seen clips so far, and I've heard from yourself, he looks a fantastic player. He's one of the comments there. Could you imagine ASM and Favre in the same team? That would certainly be interesting. Foxy's saying that he was surprised that Monaco got rid of him for $500,000. So I don't know what sort of price is going to be quoted for that. I'm not too sure. But Chris has said it as well in the chat. He said, "Pete, you've sold him." So if that's good enough for Chris, it's good enough for me. At the end of the day, Chris is the Avon salesman, so he's obviously got a good pitch off yourself there, Pete. So he's took that on board, mate.
No, I aim to please, but yeah, I know Daz for a fact he just said we.
No, I saw when you sent the clip on earlier on, Pete, and I got to listen to Lee Davey before the show, and I haven't been offer. Oh, let's look a bit closer here, and take him any day. But he is okay. We have the defense to sort out. We need strikers. We need someone solid in midfield. Then after that, he's a luxury kind of a buy. He's be like, we'll take him as well because we might get him now. It might be more difficult in the summer. But I'd love to see him rocking up with Newcastle for sure.
Definitely, but there is a little bit more. So we've got another clip from Lee that gives us a little bit of update, and a certain Sven Botman and one other is mentioned in this clip. So keep an ear out for some updates there.
Hi, just an update on another couple of players that are based in Liga. And first and foremost, Sven Botman. Now, we know that Sven Botman is of interest to Newcastle United. We know that because reportedly earlier this week, Newcastle placed a 35 million euro bid for the player to Lille, which was rejected. Now, I think there's still something in this for Newcastle United, and I believe that Newcastle's board also believe there's something in this. This is certainly seems like Lille are playing hardball, as you would with a club with limited finances. You want to get as much money as you can for your prized assets, and that's simply what Lille are doing here. There will be cat and mouse between now and the end of the window, but if Newcastle stay firm, I do believe they can get their man. I also believe this is a situation that Newcastle need to get over the line in this window, because there will be other suitors in the summer when Lille start to sell off a lot of their title winning team, which is certainly what's expected. So Newcastle need to stand firm. Guys, this was going to be a typical case of cat and mouse. So a lot of drawn out negotiations, and hopefully this can get over the line for Newcastle United by the end of the window. It may go down to the wire, so be patient. I think Newcastle fans need to get used to the fact that this is going to be certainly the norm when it comes to negotiation with players, just because Newcastle United have, a lot of money at their disposal. And obviously clubs, especially in France, have been really hit massively, not just by COVID, but also by the collapse of the Media Pro television deal last season. So they're going to try and get as much money as possible, as French teams are generally struggling financially this year. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly if Newcastle can get over the line, that would be, as I said last week, a really great piece of business, but please stay patient with that one. The other one is Gini Wijnaldum, which is an interesting one because Newcastle United fans, you obviously know him very, very well from, his time at the club. And, things haven't gone swimmingly so far for him at Paris Saint-Germain. Things have been very strange at PSG this season anyway. I think that Mauricio Pochettino naturally doesn't look happy at the club, and I'm sure he's going to move on at the end of the season, but he was the one that was really instrumental in bringing Gini to the club. So I think personally that this is something that could definitely happen, but more likely, in my opinion, to happen at the end of the season and in the summer transfer window. I think PSG will stick with their man. He has played a bit more as we headed towards the winter break. He has started to kind of integrate himself in the team. He's weighed in with some really important goals, actually. And he's just slowly finding his feet. I'd be surprised if Gini wanted to leave in this window. I think he'd want to see the season through. There's a huge Champions League game coming up against Real Madrid. And with the team, pretty far ahead in the league, I'm sure he'll want to win some honours with the club as he starts to integrate himself in. The only way I would see him leaving in this window is if Pochettino opted to play his younger players, which he has in the last couple of cup games, the likes of Xavi Simons and Edouard Michoud. And if he starts to play those players and lets Gini Wijnaldum know that, he's going to integrate these players in as soon as possible, then maybe if Wijnaldum sees that as a threat, he might look at, requesting a move this window. We'll see what happens with that, but I think that's more likely in the summer.
Cheers, Lee.
Okay. Yeah. I went really, really fast on my screen.
You did. We saw that too. Thought you were going to sign you.
So first and foremost, Sven Botman. So obviously we know through lots and lots of social media and the links recently that we've had a bid rejected. There has been talk, as Fabrizio Romano said, that there's a potential that we're going to try again and up our bid. And as Lee said, it seems like it's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse, that there's going to be a bit of a waiting game. But if I remember rightly, last week, I think you talked about this, Jordan, and you mentioned the fact that, this is not going to be a deal that's going to be done very quickly, because Lille are going to want to get as much money as possible. And obviously, Ekram Connor, a very well-known journalist, has said as early as today, saying that AC Milan have opted out. Now, there are mixed reports saying that they are back in and they're going to try and get the money together. There's lots of rumours with regards to AC Milan, but the key to this is that Newcastle, have the money that Lille want. There's no guarantees that AC Milan are going to be able to stump up the money to be able to afford him. But as I said, and going back to the point, Jordan, you talked about, as well as Lee talked about, it could well be a little bit of a deal that's later on in the window.
Yeah, absolutely right. There was talk this week saying obviously Newcastle had a bid rejected and that the player wasn't keen on a move to Newcastle, but my information is the complete opposite. There's still life in this deal, and the player does want to move to Newcastle United. That's the information I've got. He's Newcastle's top target. I don't think they're going to give up on him easily. I think there's a second bid to come. And as you mentioned there, yeah, I think that's one for more back end of the transfer window, that Newcastle have to be patient. I said before about Newcastle prioritising the central defender and a striker, but he is Botman is Newcastle's top target, so they'll be willing to wait. If they are getting indication that a deal can be completed, which I'm sure they are, they'll wait out. If not, then they'll go and look at alternative options. But as I speak now, it's a deal that could still happen. The interest is still there. The player is keen to come to Newcastle. So let's wait and see what happens. As I say, he is the top target, and understandably so as well, because great player. Obviously a big part of Lille's title winning side last year. So yeah, let's wait and see on that one.
No, I have to agree. Rich, are you still confident that we could get Botman in this window? Oh, you're on mute, Mitch. Sorry.
Who's putting us on mute?
Sorry.
Is it you, Daz? Because
when you get back and went the bit, you were talking over Lee at one stage.
Yeah, right. Regards Botman, I think it's pretty much similar to what I said before. I think it's a window we have to get done now. A lot of the bigger clubs that are interested, they tend to make their signings in the summer because the January transfer window is such a hard one to navigate. Prices are inflated and stuff like that. That's why a lot of teams are actually waiting for Newcastle to be active before making moves and stuff like that. So, I have had someone tell us that the Botman deal, personally with him, it echoes what Jordan said. He wants to come to Newcastle. It's just Lille playing hardball. I believe Newcastle are going to be lining up a second bid, as Jordan has said. Apparently, it will be a take it or leave it offer, though, with what that goes in. So it is one of those ones that will probably go down at the end of the window, as Jordan mentioned.
Definitely. Daz, are you still as confident with regards to Botman?
Getting them, I don't know. It does look like that they're looking at the other targets now as well. Yeah, I definitely want him. But yeah, I think we'll put it off. As Leah said, it's just kind of cat and mouse here to get it over the line. So yeah, hopefully it'll still happen.
And Jordan, finally on Gini Wijnaldum. Obviously, Lee seems to think with his PSG sort of head on that he may stay to the end of the season and maybe look to move on in the summer. But we've had reports on here, the transfer exchange show, saying that Eddie Howe would love to bring him back to Newcastle in January. Do you think there's a chance? Has there been any sort of more rumours in and around things with regards to Gini Wijnaldum and Newcastle?
Yeah, it's hard to rule out players coming, but with Wijnaldum, I do doubt that he'll return to Newcastle, to be honest. As Lee mentioned there, it seems like he's back in the fold at PSG. He only signed in the summer as well, so it's sort of, you look at that, he's still got a point to prove there on big wages. Don't get us wrong, he would, I'm sure many Newcastle fans would agree with this, but if you can get Gini Wijnaldum back, you'd snap PSG's hands off. But I just don't think it's a realistic deal in this window, sadly. Yeah, that's all I've got to sort out on that. We've spoken about Wijnaldum in previous weeks. We all know what Wijnaldum would bring. He was a goal scorer midfielder at Newcastle, but I say Jurgen Klopp turned him into a sort of an all-round complete midfielder. So we know his qualities, but I just don't think he'll sign, unfortunately,
Yeah, he's a talented player, and he would certainly make our midfield a hell of a lot better. That's for sure. Rich, Gini, is there a chance in your mind that we could get a deal in, even if it was a loan to the end of the season? He has been playing a little bit recently, but he's still not necessarily playing every week. And that's something that Gini Wijnaldum's been really used to. Ever since he was at PSV, before he even came to Newcastle, he's been used to playing every week. So what do you think?
I think there's always a chance. At the end of the day, I know Lee mentioned that, Poch has been playing a lot of the younger players. We know that Wijnaldum's, late 20s, early 30s now. So he is coming to the end, back end of his career. But he's got a World Cup at the end of the year, and he's going to want to stabilise himself in the Dutch squad. That'll probably be his last major tournament for Holland, I'd imagine. So, if he puts his foot down, just Poch is one of these sort of coaches that would stop someone leaving if they didn't want it. He's not saying not necessarily wanting to leave PSG permanently. A loan for 6 months could work well. It could then go to a permanent one in the summer if it goes well, if he came back. But it's another one where I think we'll see what happens in the window first, and it could be one that comes back at the end of the window. And I imagine if it was to happen, it would be a loan deal.
I would agree with that 100%. But again, we wait and see. This transfer window has turned on its head a number of times in the last 6 days. And between now and the next time that we're together on the Fully Loaded Transfer Show, all could change again, and I'm sure it will. But let's have a look at some questions in the chat, boys. I'm sure there'll be a few questions in there for Jordan and for us to answer. Avon man, Mr. Avon, Chris Hall. Question for Jordan. Boubacar Kamara rumours have gone very quiet. Is he someone the consortium is still considering? We've heard Man U are very keen. Personally hope we go in for him. Has there been any updates with regards to Boubacar Kamara?
Still the same information as last week, that he is a player of interest. He was a player of interest in the previous ownership, which is obviously carried over to new ownership. I've read this week about Man United's interest potentially becoming stronger. If that is the case, it might make Newcastle act quicker. But then ultimately you are facing competition from arguably, one of the biggest clubs in England and one of the biggest clubs in the world, which makes it difficult. But he's definitely still under consideration. And a player, although it's gone quiet, I wouldn't rule that out. It's one to keep an eye on.
Okay, definitely need to watch. Ooh, Leonardo Spinazzola. Never been mentioned. Must be about the same price as Luka Dean. Am I right in thinking he's still injured from the?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a really bad break he had on his ankle in the Euros. He was arguably Italy's best player during that tournament. He was just fantastic down that left-hand side for Italy. I think that's probably going to be something where if we were interested and we didn't address the left-back position this window, I think he'd be a summer move, I think, on that one. But I can't see him join us, but he's a hell of a player. Really, really good player.
Definitely. He's a talent. Good question there, Chris. Dunil. How are you doing, Dunil? Hope you're well. Question, guys. Do you think we will get an under-the-radar signing, i.e. a signing we didn't expect? I imagine that's for Jordan.
Short answer, yeah, I do. I think there's a player that hasn't been mentioned or hasn't came to anyone's attention that will probably be signed. We're only 6 days into the January transfer window. There's still a long way to go. And you think about the names that have been linked in just 6 days. You add another 6 days, there'll be new names cropping up every day. So, I'd under radar signing in terms of a player that hasn't been mentioned yet. Yeah, I think that is the case. A big sort of statement signing in terms of, we've seen there Vukovic mentioned from Fiorentina. I don't think that will be a goer, but you never know. But yeah, in terms of players that haven't been mentioned yet, I wouldn't be surprised at all, just given the pace of which this January transfer window is going at. It's quite hard to keep up.
Yeah, tell us about it.
We didn't really cover Vlahovic tonight, and because we had so many to cover. But to be fair, that's always a moving part with Vlahovic because he's got so much interest. And actually, fingers crossed from some of the reports today that we may have or may be in contact and putting a bid in. There was a famous Italian journalist that tweeted out today and said that we were in contacts, that hopefully this time next week we're having discussions that maybe it's a little bit further down the line, but let's wait and see on that. But another couple of questions.
Yeah, this is a straight answer on this one. It's an A or B question for Jordan answer.
Oh, is that a straight answer? Yeah.
Well, both come with very hefty price tags, don't they? So Vukovic just sound like the more pricier option. Yeah, I'll go with the Fiorentina striker just based on his goal record this year. But that is a tough question because Nunez has been equally as special as well. So I might have to sit on the fence with that one, to be honest.
You're not wrong, mate. That's a tough one.
I know who I'd choose. I know how I'd choose, and it's not Nunez. Surprisingly.
Wow.
No, I just think he's equaled Ronaldo's record for goals scored in Serie A in a calendar year. And to be fair, to do with that in Serie A against some good teams, and he's playing for a team that's overachieving. Whereas Nunez has scored 13 in the Portuguese league, where you've only got 2 or 3 other good teams in the league. So that's probably the reason why I go for Vlahovic, personally, anyway.
It's interesting. I'd probably agree with you. I'd probably go with Vlahovic. Nunez is probably the cheaper option.
Yeah.
But Vlahovic is the star-studded option at the moment. That's for sure. Another one from Andrew Molly. What do you lads think about? I think he's meant to say Mikel Merino back to the tune. I would have loved him to stay. He's a super talent, and he's just got better and better since he left us at Real Sociedad. So, would you boys want him back?
Yeah, I'd take him back. I suppose that we were spoiled for choice, but as I think I mentioned at another show, I can't remember which show, but on Football Manager, get back to Football Manager, Jordan. A lot of people, when they fast forwarded through the seasons, he's a player that seems to come back to Newcastle and do pretty well. So it could happen in real life as well. You never know.
Definitely.
We've already touched on this one, really, but it's just another A, B, or C question. Martial, Origi, Nketiah.
Oh,
yeah, it would be Origi, definitely.
Origi, yeah.
He's made a good point earlier about Martial's attitude, but Martial's one of them players that if you can get rid of that attitude and you can get him, happy, then it's a no-brainer. But that isn't always the case. Origi has always shown at Liverpool his attitude's been spot on. Hasn't been irregular, but as we touched upon earlier, has scored, some of the most important goals in Liverpool's recent history. So that suggests that his attitude's spot on, and he's got an eye for goal. Eddie Nketiah, I'm not convinced by Eddie Nketiah, to be honest. He strikes me as a quite of a poacher in a player that feeds off service, which, don't get us wrong, every striker feeds off service, but Nketiah in particular, quite a lot of these goals are tap-ins, which does suggest that the player is in the right place at the right time, but also needs service, and hasn't played loads of Premier League football for Arsenal. Most of his football this season became the Carabao Cup, and then his previous experience from that was playing for Leeds in the Championship. So if I had to pick that out of them three, it would be Origi. Yeah,
I agree with that one.
Yeah, I think it might be a full house unless Daz has got another opinion.
Sorry, I was just changing that something in the background. No, Origi for me as well, for sure.
Yeah. Right, last couple of questions then, because I know I'm getting close to round-up time. If we're struggling to sign the right striker late in the window, could we put a cheeky loan bid in for Jose Perez? Or would Leicester rather see us go down as we have future competition for them?
Good question.
That's a good question, Seb, isn't it?
I just don't think Leicester would let Perez go. he's never really been a regular under Brendan Rodgers, has he? Really, has it? In terms of the move itself, it hasn't worked out to expectations. But yeah, the point was made in there. Would Leicester want to help boost Newcastle United in terms of, in a few years' time, if all being well, Newcastle United will be rivaling Leicester City at least. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, a cheeky loan bid maybe, but would it be accepted? I do doubt it.
I think with I think they've got a few players at Africa Cup of Nations. I think Iniacho's gone. I think Daka's injured. Vardy's injured at the moment, and I'm not sure of their recovery time. I think it might be difficult to let him go, because I think at the moment he might be their only fit forward player that can play in that attacking position. So I think that might be difficult. But I think Jeff asked a good question. Would we want Perez? I mean, I don't. He was a very patchy player at his best for Newcastle anyway, and I don't feel that he would fit into a Eddie Howe style of football. I think if he went and played for Rafa at Everton, I think it might be slightly different. But I personally wouldn't want him back. I thought we, without sounding horrible, I thought we bent over Leicester when they paid 30 million for him, because I don't think he was worth 30 million at all. But for that reason, I'd probably say no. But again, good question there, Seb.
Yeah, and the last one from Davey Durkin is: does Jordan know if there's any bids in for any of our players?
Oh, good question.
No, I don't think there is. The only obviously rumoured one which came up today was Sean Longstaff from Everton. But that's the thing with Newcastle. Obviously, there's pressure on, or maybe not pressure, but there's certainly an onus on getting players out of the club if you're going to sign new players. And you look at Newcastle's fringe players, and they're so hard to offload. The one that they'll want to potentially offload is, and the most obvious one is Dwight Gale. But as I think I'd mentioned previously as well, I think there's an expectation that Newcastle would go and get 15 million or 10 million from a championship club for Dwight Gale. It's not the case now, because Dwight Gale hasn't been fit and firing for about 2 years now, or at least 18 months. So no bids as such. I think one to watch is maybe loans out. That might be Newcastle's way of getting players out. Loans, potentially a few loans to the Championship. Maybe, say, the goalkeeping situation, you've got Freddie Woodman, Mark Gillespie, even Carl Darlow and Martin Dubravka. Now I'll expect Newcastle to retain Dubravka and Darlow, but potentially Freddie Woodman could be going out on loan. And then we'll just have to see how things develop. See if Newcastle go and sign a couple of central defenders. I'd expect to see a couple of central defenders leave. You could see a Kieran Clark go out on loan to a Championship club, or there's talk around Fabian Schär's future. So when he got 6 months on his contract,
we're going to mention that there was a link from a journalist. I think we've got the clip somewhere. From Nicolo Sharia, who does report on a number of things. Newcastle United. If Fabian Schär is ready to leave in the transfer window, and as you've mentioned, Jordan, you're exactly right. He's only got 6 months left on his contract. So, could that be a possibility potentially, considering we're looking at not just one, but maybe even possibly 2 centre backs?
Yeah, I think it is a possibility that Schär could leave. Would I want him to leave? Would Newcastle fans want him to leave? Would Eddie Howe want him to leave? Probably not, because he's became a starter, and he's performed well. But before that, under Steve Bruce, he became sort of a second option in defence, and had a few injuries as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Schär leave. But he is one of Newcastle's probably sellable assets, if you like. I know he's only got 6 months left on his contract, but if you're looking to get a player out and you look at that squad, then Fabian Schär is a player that clubs would be interested in from across Europe. So yeah, it's a potential if signings go to plan and they do get 2 central defenders in. There's obviously a massive overload in defence, and they do need to get rid of bodies. And unfortunately, Schär could be one of the players sacrificed.
Jordan, just a quick one, because we touched on Sean Longstaff. Is it, I don't know whether you might have heard or anything at all today. Has it, the rumours of him, of the Everton link, has it, unsettled him a little bit, or do you know anything about that?
Well, that's the thing with the Everton bid now. If it's rumoured £1 million, now that's never going to get accepted. Sean Longstaff's got 6 months left on his contract, but £1 million is taking the mick a little bit. And that could be a ploy from Everton to unsettle the player. Transfer tactics, it does happen. So we know it might have unsettled Sean Longstaff. I'm not sure it has. But I see Sean Longstaff as a player at the minute that they don't want to let go. Maybe towards the back end of the transfer window, if as I mentioned earlier about Luka Dean, if that is a potential, then they may look to use Longstaff as a part of that deal. I'm being distracted by all these pop on.
sorry, Jordan. That's Jeff again. Grapevine Jeff.
Jeff, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. Look, and I don't think they are, but look, me and Dad, Amanda, if you're watching, go get John Stones, please, in this room. Just go get John Stones so I can come for Jeff, please.
Oh, hang on, if that happens, Jeff has to be on the show that we break that transfer. Definitely.
100%.
Yeah, that's happening.
Definitely. Love it. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. But Daz, obviously the sponsors, Bronwyn, Black and White Army. Please, if you haven't already, go to www.blackandwhitearmy.com. All the profits donated to the NUFC food bank. I think that was in the month of December. But still some fantastic pieces of clothing there available. And I think the new name of the sponsor is coming up very soon. I think. So
I've heard a little snippet, but I'm not allowed to say anything yet.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So
get back on.
It could be a shock.
Wow. So there's something in the works.
Sunderland.
Okay?
No. She wants to keep a little icon in the top right-hand corner of the screen, Daz.
Okay.
Cool. That should be fun. Actually, Pete, just before we close down and say goodbye to everyone, just a quick shout out as well. So if you haven't seen the shows that we've done already, because we put a lot of effort in this week, this the show with Kieran Maguire. If you haven't seen that, I'm sure everyone has seen it at this stage, but it's a great show to watch it and to go back and watch it again. You learn something from that show. We had a quick 15-20 minute show on when Kieran Trippier was announced. We still haven't seen him in the jersey, but I'm sure that'll happen tomorrow. Yesterday and going into the weekend, you have the away days with under the Abbey stand for the Cambridge United fan. Was his name Jordan as well? I think it was.
It was Jordan.
Yes,
it was Jordan. Fantastic guy. He'll be travelling up with the other 5,000 Cambridge fans tomorrow for the big game. Saturday for the big game. I think it's Friday today. Wishful thinking. He'll be travelling up with the lads and the lasses. I promised him that the Geordies in the town centre will look after them. So please do, the Cambridge fans. They're really excited to come up and just experience a day at St James's Park and in Newcastle. So should be a fantastic day. But hopefully we are in the next round come 5 o'clock.
Also coming up then on Monday, because unless there's a player signing, we probably won't be around until Monday. But we'll see. You never know. You never know what'll happen. Things change daily with us. But yeah, coming up on Monday, 8 o'clock, we have Sean Casey, in the know, and we'll run a few names past him and see his thoughts on a few names and where he gets his information. Who is he? Who is this mystery man? I have no idea who he is. So we'll find out a bit more on Monday evening. And yeah, just make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're getting closer now to the 2K. We broke the 1K on transfer. The takeover day or the day before it or something like that. So to get us to 2K, that would be brilliant. So get us over the line, get us to 2K if you haven't hit that subscribe button already, or log in with your email or different emails if you have to get us over to 2K. Okay, I think we should say thank you to Jordan for joining us and putting up with us for 2.5 hours, and to Lee for the videos that he sent through. And
sorry, Daz, just to interrupt, just with Lee, obviously, with the French season being in the winter break, he's actually not on social media at the moment. He's come off that because of the winter break. He'll be back on soon. He knows that people have been like following him and tagging him in things. The only bit of sort of work with regards to football has been the Fully Loaded transfer show. And he loves doing it, and he just wanted to obviously say like massive thank you to everyone, because he's had a lot of positive feedback on the back of just giving his opinions and the information that he knows from Liga. So massive thanks to everyone that's shown support.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So I think that's pretty much it. We'll say goodbye and good night to everyone.